evening. Thank you all for being here tonight, and welcome to the special Town Council meeting of Wednesday, April 8th, 2020 at 7 p.m. This meeting is being held in a remote location. I'm going to call this meeting to order with an announcement. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing stricter limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town Council is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in this order. Despite our best efforts, we are not at this time able to provide for real-time access, and we will post the record of this meeting on the town's website at www.ci.suffrage.ma.us as soon as we are able. A roll call vote is required for all votes taken under this order. So that was originally the way it was posted. However, this afternoon, I worked with Suffrage Cable Access, and we are attempting to send this live via YouTube as well as the Suffrage Cable Access channel 192. So we're hoping that it works. They feel pretty confident that it works. If that's the way it is, then that's the way we'll be going through going forward. So agenda item 1, the roll call.
Councilor Adams?
No, sorry. First thing is Pledge of Allegiance. I apologize. So, everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I think this will work. It's there. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There we go. So, I think that worked. That was nice. Way to do something remotely? All right. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Councilor Adams?
Present.
Councilor Catrona?
Present.
Councilor Daniel?
Present.
Councilor Jovan?
Present.
Councilor Lazo?
He's absent. I don't think he has web access right now, so.
Okay. Councilor Manna?
Present.
Councilor Marquetti?
Present.
Councilor Nash?
Present.
Councilor Steves?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's present or not, so we'll give him a few minutes to see if the access is on.
Okay.
So, again, first off, I want to thank Suffrage Cable Television, the access guys, Max, Jim, and all of them upstairs, for their assistance in getting this, hopefully, live program out on cable access, as well as the work that they've been doing with us through the Emergency Operations Center. And they've been a great partner to us, and we're very grateful to have them. And hopefully tonight, this is going out live without any glitches. Just a couple things before we get into the meeting. Just quick couple updates, not to get into too many details on it tonight because we have another meeting on Monday night, the 13th. I know Councilor Daniel had sent out an email, and I'm sure he'll have some conversations later on about Quinsigamond Community College. Last week, I was contacted by Bay Path Superintendent John LaFleche, who also serves on the Board of Trustees for Quinsigamond Community College, contacting us about Quinsigamond Community College and the commitment to Southbridge. He asked that I facilitate a meeting between the town manager, Dr. Villar, and Quinsigamond Community College, which we had a conference call on Monday with several representatives of Quinsig, town officials, town manager, Aaron Hanois, as well as the school system. They are currently at 60 Optical Drive, and they had a request for proposals out for another 5-year term, and they're having some conversations about what that may look like, given that their enrollment has dropped in the town of Southbridge to about 286 students. So with the decreased enrollment and what the cost of that campus is, they're looking for some alternative locations in the town going forward. So we had a very robust, I would call it robust, conversation about the use of the middle school, high school, as a possible location for a Quincy SIG. Out of that conversation, I was very excited, I'm sure the town manager was as well, about what some of the thoughts were about having the campus at the middle school, high school, and what the opportunities that they could bring to our students here in Southbridge, as well as the community. I know Council Marquetti has been big on the workforce type programs. There's a lot of conversation about that specific topic. So they very strongly stressed that they have a commitment to Southbridge. They've been in Southbridge for a long time. What the model will look like is something that we'll be working on together with them. But it really was in the infancy stages. But over and over, they reiterated what their commitment to the town of Southbridge and the students in Southbridge are. So I don't see them going anywhere from Southbridge. It's just going to be how we work to get that model. But there was a lot of conversation, and it was great conversation about what the opportunities for our students here in Southbridge would be. Also partnering with, getting students and their parents into some programs. So it was a great conversation, but there'll be more on that. So if you have anything at Council's forum that you want to bring up at that point, but I thought it was important enough because you did bring up a question, Council Daniel, that I share that information with you all tonight. Budget meetings, I want to thank Vice Chairman Councilor Daniels for, I kind of tasked him out and taking the lead and working with the town manager's office to set up the scheduling of the different dates for meetings that we'll have on the budget. Those dates have been firmed up. I need to talk to Councilor Daniels offline, and we'll have more conversation about it. I do have it on the agenda for Monday night to talk about the scheduling and some of that. Some of the concerns that I might have going forward as we look through that budget, but those meetings will be set up, and I know Yvonne has been in contact with certain councilors that would have been the leads on the subcommittees, and we'll figure out how we're going to go forward, and we'll have more conversation on that Monday night. Finally, the purpose of this meeting tonight was really to provide and get some updates on the COVID-19 pandemic. We had a meeting on March 30th relative to that, the issue and how we're moving forward. It's important that we have a weekly meeting, at least to touch base, get some updates from our officials, and also talk about some of the activity that took place over the last week, and just kind of discuss it with a lot of comments or conversations of people that reached out to me asking about why this occurred, and the only way to do that is a full council. So I'll have more to say when we get to the COVID-19 public health briefing, but those are the only announcements I have tonight. So, Mr. Town Manager, if you have any announcements?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, like you, was very excited about the meeting with QCC, and I appreciate your facilitation of that meeting. I think it brings a lot of great opportunities to the town, and I look forward to seeing how that grows into something that we're all going to be very excited about. I want to talk a lot tonight about what's going on. Obviously, the last couple of weeks has been all about the coronavirus, and has really taken up a massive amount of time of certain departments within Town Hall. But I did want to express just a little bit to each of you the tremendous concern, fear, and anxiety from members of the town government. I'm talking specifically the employees. They have a lot to deal with when they're, in fact, going home through the TVs and watching everyone else be told to stay home, and they're attending work. And I want to thank them for that. And I've spent more time talking to employees in the last 2 weeks about issues and concerns than I think I have in the 4 years. It's been that kind of communication to make sure people are as comfortable as possible, understand how we're moving forward and what we're doing and what we're thinking, how it impacts them. It really has been an interesting time, and to hear about their fears and their concerns, and to understand, what they are trying to explain and what at least I think the future would be. And it's very difficult, as you know, Mr. Chairman. We've had a lot of conversation about the ever-changing times from day to day. Decisions are changing and new information is coming out, and nobody is quite sure what to expect tomorrow. So it's been a difficult time, but I did want to recognize all my employees, specifically the Department of Advanced Special Services, is our Department of Health in it. They have worked countless hours, well beyond the time My office has been there tremendously overtime. Police, fire have been out there, DPW. There's been a lot of work going on in spite of the fact that the building itself is closed. All employees are working as hard as they possibly can, and some departments more than they've ever worked. So I appreciate the support of the council members and employees, and hopefully we'll all be back to normal not too far in the future, and we can no longer talk on phone, but actually meet and be together again once again. But I do encourage everybody that's watching this show to continue the social distancing, continue all those practices to protect all of us, and thank all the people out there that are doing a wonderful job, everyone from the supermarket people to our emergency responders to all the people involved in this crisis. We appreciate it very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So before we start, agenda item 5 is a COVID-19 public health and safety briefing update, where I've asked Director of Inspections, Andrew Pelletier, Incident Commander Shane Woodson, Police Chief, Emergency Operations Center and Fire Chief Paul Normandin, Emergency Management Director, to be participating in this and updating us. Before I start, I want to echo one thing that Ron mentioned. I do want to express all the thanks for the work that's being done by our central personnel as we've worked through this pandemic. Can't say enough about all the hard work that our emergency responders, police, fire have done in trying circumstances. I do realize that these are uneasy times, and I know I've had several tense meetings and conversations with various people in town government throughout the last couple of weeks, and it's really difficult, and I appreciate the fear that employees have about coming to work when people are said to be at home. And I think as we've worked through this, we've been sensitive to the fact that we don't know where this virus is. And we know it's in the town, we know it's everywhere. So it's very difficult even as a family member, because all of us, a lot of us have family that are in emergency services, whether it be police, fire, town employees that have spouses that work in EMS, fathers that have daughters that are respiratory therapists that are in the thick of this. So we're all affected in this, and we're trying to run the town and government as best we can, because it is essential that we keep the operation of a town government just like the state is. The state has the essential employees working. You just have to be mindful of everything. I want to do, on behalf of the town of Southbridge, express sorrow and our thoughts and prayers to the family of one individual in town who passed away because of COVID-19, and to all those that are suffering from COVID-19 in town, the confirmed cases. Our thoughts are with you as you get well and recuperate from this. The goal of the Emergency Operations Center, when this was set forward as leaders of the town, was to provide accurate and timely information to the town, and to ensure that while we maintain the operation of town government, that the protection of and the health and safety of all our residents, as well as our first responders and employees, was at the utmost of importance. We've really strived to provide accurate and timely information out to the public. I want to really thank Councilor Adams for all the hard work that he has done serving as the public information officer in the Emergency Operations Center, because everything that you see out on the website that we've developed out of the Emergency Operations Center has been a product of what he has developed, and worked very hard with all town departments to get as much information out as a centralized point of information, so that we don't have the rumors, that we have concrete and solid information by all the lead officials of the town of Southbridge. I'm also extremely proud and honored to work with Chief Paul Normandin of the Fire Department and Chief Shane Woodson of the Police Department. By far, we have two of the best leaders in public safety in the area and in the state, I believe. They have provided the town tremendous leadership and guidance, and I know they're working very hard to make sure that we keep this incident in check. They worked very hard with the Director of Inspections, who was out there trying to chase these cases down. So again, very proud of the work that's being done day in and day out that is really behind the scenes, and it's important for me to convey that out to the public tonight because you don't see it, but there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. And again, I'll ask first for the Director of Inspections, Public Health Agent Andy Pelletier, to provide some information of what he wants to provide to us tonight as an update. And again, we'll have another briefing to the Town Council on Monday night. So, Andy?
Good evening. I'd really like to start by reflecting, mirroring Jack's thoughts. Very unfortunate we had a death in the town. Sympathies with the family of that incident. Furthermore, I want to thank the people of the town because our numbers are not ridiculously out of control as they potentially could have been if the people were not cooperating. We are putting isolation and quarantine orders on people, and for the most part, they're following them. So I attribute it to the people of the town to keep this thing in check, and I think they're doing a really good job of it. Briefly, March 10th, Charlie Baker stated a state of emergency. As of today, we have 18 cases and 1 death. Of the 18 cases, 7 of them came in between yesterday and today. So you've all heard about the predicted surge, the mathematically calculated surge that's predicted between the 10th and thereafter. I believe we might be entering it. So with 7 cases, up until now, by the 30th, we only had 6 cases in town. That's 18 days after the state of emergency, and today, 9 days later, we have 18. So we're on the rise. I hope our preparation set us up to handle it. The intent of this was to level the curve, new language we've all heard, basically to stop this thing from spiking through the roof so that the medical profession can handle the surge. Hopefully we're in that situation. So 18 cases. Each case, the department has to follow up on every case. We have a public health nurse that we share with several communities. So we have 18, Charlton has several, Sturbridge has several. The biggest thing right now that we are looking to do is get resources to assist the public health nurse. Every case that we deal with, we have to contact the case, follow up with that case. We have to directly contact them, identify their close contacts, and then put a isolation order on that person. Then we have to follow up with each of the contacts. So one case could end up with 4, 5, 6, or 7 contacts, depending on what their career was. God forbid it be a food worker, because then we have to track everybody who's potentially could have been a contact to that. We identify the close contacts. Now it's up to us to inform the close contacts, and it's actually harder to deal with the close contacts than it is to deal with the actual case, because the case has already been informed that they are in this situation. The contacts, we contact them and tell them, look, you've been identified as a close contact. It's traumatic for these people, and we have to make sure that whatever resources we put on this are knowledgeable of that and capable of handling that. I believe I have 2 actions before council on Monday, hopefully to work towards getting the resources that we're going to need to handle this surge, if indeed it does come. Department actions, we are in meetings. We are in meetings with the DPH. We are in meetings with Maven, which is our reporting software, our reporting company for all these cases. CMRPC is running some programs for DPH, so we're in meetings with them. Obviously, weekly, we are with the EOC. Very active member with the EOC, partnering hopefully very well with fire, police, and a huge player here is finance. Additional to that, we're in several public regional meetings for the public health, and we're with obviously staying with the public health emergency preparedness through this. Each one of these meetings, I don't know if you follow Charlie Baker's reports every day, but every one of his reports every day results in usually at least one edict or one guidance document that we have to totally dissect and figure out what the function of that is. The very simple example is municipalities' landscaping is on it, but in the general public, landscaping isn't isn't on it, so can we expand from, government landscaping is on it. Can we expand from government and say that the golf course can open, but they have to be able to maintain their course? And the Board of Health is constantly doing those interpretations of the guidance documents. More importantly is the lack of guidance, and it's getting better, but there's a lot of lack of guidance out there on things that we run into. We're dealing with people calling constantly and asking, hey, is my business exempt? And it's kind of like the gray line, and there's no real guidance on that. You guys are familiar with a adult daycare that finally we got some guidance on it, but the board had to make a decision within the town on whether we were going to let that go on or not, because they basically lacked guidance on what we should do with things like that. To that end, everybody who has been put out of work, and my sympathies are with everybody who has been put out of work, but everybody who has been put out of work is looking across the street and seeing somebody else working, and we are getting that phone call. So, and we are following up on every one of those, talking to the agent who is working, and making that decision on if they are an exempt business. So a lot of our work is responding to the complaints of people working, the complaints of businesses that were offset.
Can I ask?
And then, please.
Jack,
Please.
if I may, Mr.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilman. Go ahead.
So when you say those out of work are seeing those who are working and we're following up on that, can you just clarify that a little bit? Because you're not saying if they work in like construction outside, if they're doing landscaping outside, if it's like 10 or more people. So, I mean, because I'm working and my neighbor might see me, but he might see me through my window. So.
Correct, and it's very possible that he might call on you, and we would have to go down and talk to you, or at least determine what type of work, and tell you, yeah, that's fine, that's allowed. Or
In my own home? In my home?
No.
If he sees me working in my home?
Reality, yes. If you are working, if you are receiving customers, we are going to talk to you about
So
that.
that's what we need clarity on, because we don't have clarity on that. So if you could just be a little bit more clear on that, that would be helpful, because I'm an executive assistant. I have the capabilities of working at home, and I'm managing schedules. That's what I'm doing.
Okay, my apologies for the briefness. I'm working with where my head is, and my head knows all of the guidance documents, and I'm sorry I'm not conveying that well to you. You know, the guidance documents say that even if you are a banned company, if you can work from home and keep separate, then you're excused. But we're getting calls from things like hairdressers who are no longer working at their business, but we're finding them on Facebook saying, hey, come to my house. So yes, in some cases, we are going to people's houses and saying, you got to cut that out. You know, it's dangerous. It's going to spread this disease. So aside from what is allowed to be done, we're pretty much responding to everything unless it's so far out in left field that we know it's okay. So if your neighbor does call, we may come down and say, hey, are you receiving customers? And if you're not, we're good with it. So the council is aware that we have, moving on, the council is aware that we have altered our food inspections. We are doing very brief inspections, but trying to get more inspections. The inspections are being shortened to include only employee health, employee hygiene, food handling, the facilities for food handling, and the management knowledge of when they should exclude people and when they shouldn't exclude people. We have shut down 3 establishments. We have cited conditions, and they have quickly corrected those conditions, but Maritza my food inspector is hitting every opportunity she can. Additional to that, every guidance document that comes in that pertains to food, such as the grocery store document that came in today, she is now converting that to a message to all of the food places, and it will be added to our agenda that she's going to have to go down and make sure that they have somebody at the door counting, that they have a line marked with 6 people. Every one of these guidance documents causes one of my resources to have to go out and make sure that they are complying with the guidance document. So to that end, under continuation of operation plan, we are identifying those items that aren't as critical in this environment, things like blight, are not being addressed as much as they should be because our effort, or as much as they would normally be, because our efforts are being put and our resources are being directed to trying to keep these guidances up and trying to keep the people safe in this situation. There are multiple other facilities in town that are closed. Be aware, currently there are no facilities out there that have been closed by the Board of Health, or that are currently closed by the Board of Health. There are several that have chosen to close on their own for the protection of their customers, protection of their employees, and in some cases they're just not doing enough business to stay open, but they, that was an action of theirs, not of ours. We are working with fire department, police department, and private partners to address special population. Right now we're working with the shelter for homeless to make sure that we have them as protected as we have everybody else. And that one, we actually just had a big meeting on that today, and we're trying to move that through as quick as possible because we see the value of protecting the homeless also. Building inspector is being sucked into this too. You would think it would be not, but there's a lot of onus put on the contractors. What is an essential, you know, we're not approving swimming pools right now. We're approving anything that can be attributed to safety. We're attributing anything that can be attributed to housing because the governor has declared that anything that produces more housing addresses a housing shortage in Massachusetts and therefore is essential. There is an onus on industry to come up with their own COVID protection plan, and I have asked Mike to, I have asked the building inspector to at least touch base with them and make sure that that is getting worked on. So he has also been sucked into this response. Want to let the council know, the Department of Public Health, through the CMRPC, has designated monies for the relief for public health. We have received today $17,500 to respond to this. It is monies that have to be attributed directly to the response for the public health, for the municipal public health departments. Having said that, I see a value in doing stuff that's not within my department. So I am working closely with both the fire chief, police chief, and the finance department, and we are identifying some places where that money can be best spent to best serve the town. Seek an alternative. The Board of Health itself, I'm keeping the Board of Health up to date on everything, shooting out emails 3, 4, 5 times a day. They are burdened right now with taking my emails and defining some of the stuff in there and getting ready for meetings so that we can put it before the board to review, basically say, what does this mean? Let them talk that out. We have a meeting tomorrow where I have been trying to develop a plan for the town hall for, specifically there is a question running around. Prevention is great, but what happens if somebody shows up in the town hall with a case? And I've worked with Ron a lot on this one, talking with Ron a lot on this one. I've stolen what I can. Again, no guidance, but we're going to be discussing this at the Board of Health meeting and hopefully have some guidance for Ron to develop a policy. I'm sorry, for the town manager to develop a policy. As probably I'll get it to him Friday, and as quick as he can, I'm sure I'll work with him on the policy. As soon as we can get the policy up and running, we'll have something in the town hall also. Specifically to an exposure, I'm sure that we will expand that to more prevention for the town hall also. Aside from that, I think we are clear.
All right, thank you. I know Councilor Adams had a question. Councilor Adams?
Please.
Andy, it's Dave. Quick question for you. Trying to get off the EOC side and just as the town councilor side here. And I know this question's been brought up. Unfortunately, we have to report, you know, the bad news that is out there. The one death we just had the other day as a town. But what about the other side of that, the recovery side? Notice that the state is actually following. And you mentioned about tracking that with the one lone regional nurse, in a sense, for the town. when can we start expecting to start seeing those numbers? That's just not coming from me, but it's coming from residents as well.
Okay. We are currently using our resources to do the important end of this thing and identify them in the first place and try to prevent them from spreading it. The plan to address how we do the closure cases and how we close these, how we basically contact them. I have tomorrow at the Board of Health meeting, I am going to request that the board appoint a couple of assistants for Cheryl. Once we get the resources out there, I believe we'll be looking at the council on Monday night to back that play. And once we have the resources on board, my plan will be to contact every case once a week, ask conditions, ask how long they've been well, and release. We've got them on written quarantine and written isolation at that point, and it will be starting as soon as we get these people appointed. We will also be applying resources to closing these cases out. So I envision as early as Tuesday we could start looking at it. I've got a little bit of it, but even the very first case we have is still talking that he has some symptoms. We did contact him. So I don't know how fast they'll fall off, but we will have weekly contact as soon as we get the resources to follow all the way through with the case.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Chairman Jovan?
Yeah, go ahead, and then Council Manager, go ahead. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you.
hold on, I got Town Manager first, I'm sorry. He was first, Town Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Andy, we met into the board as well. I had a conference call with CMRPC today at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and they're talking about a third round of funding for health department. So Andy will be able to apply for more funding for that. And CMRPC has offered the town and all towns any additional assistance they can in terms of if there's staffing issues, they'll try to help fill in and do different things. So Andy should talk to them tomorrow and look for the additional funds that are coming forth for that area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Councilor Manna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you, to Andy. Just a couple things, Andy. I'm happy to see that you're addressing the homeless issue over the last couple days, at the beginning of the week, I should say. There was one homeless man that I noticed in town who was repeatedly, we found him sleeping in a sleeping bag, and I reported it and stuff. Is there any room, and do we have any shelters available in Southbridge? Are there any shelters that we can send the victims of homelessness to, or how do you handle that? And then second, going around town too when I'm driving, I noticed that some people are starting to wear masks, which is really nice. But I also noticed people wear masks at their neck. And in front of people like this, smoking cigarettes, or just talking to them, and stuff with their masks down to here. So if you or your team or anybody was to see these people practicing unsafe distancing and wearing the masks improperly, would you stop and say something to them? Or is there something on your website? Or is there something that we can mail out to the town? People to show them how to properly wear their PPE if they're going to wear it?
To the first point, the special populations and the homeless, I want to reiterate that this is something that myself, Mike, the fire chief, the police chief, we're all working together to make this happen. The cooperation that we're sharing right now is ridiculous. It's amazing. To the second point, if they've got a mask around their neck and they're smoking a cigarette, they know they have the mask around their neck. Up until recently, there has been actually, the recommendation is that masks are not necessary. That has recently, and I'm going to say within the last 3 to 4 days, been reversed, and the masks are advisory when you are going to be out in public. Walking down the street is not necessarily out in public unless, like you said, you're hanging around with your buddy and smoking your cigarette. I can put something out there, or actually I would prefer that we stick with ICS, and the incident command structure put out something because we want all of our information to go out from one point and we want it to be consistent. So I can probably find something that we can put on the webpage through the ICS and offer it up to Shane, who is the PIO, I'm sorry, the information officer. I throw letters around like crazy, I'm sorry. He is the information officer backed up by Dave, so I can get something that says how to wear a mask properly and ask them to post it onto the webpage.
Right, so, well, no, that's good, it's just, if they're not going to wear their masks properly, then we shouldn't even just wear them. That's just.
My guess is that if they have it, then when they feel they need it, they bring it up. I mean, I don't need it when I'm driving my car. I wear it around my neck.
But the homeless issue, you really didn't address. You just said you're working in cooperation with the fire department and the police department.
We are working.
I'm happy to see.
Working with.
But is there, and do we have places to put these people?
So, Councilman, I don't mean to shut you up. This issue has come up and it is being addressed through the incident command. There is a plan that they're actually working on and inspecting, so that they are working through this. So it is being handled. It's being handled on an immediate basis. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it is being done.
You didn't really need to mute me. You could have.
Well, I was
talking.
It's hard to do, but he did say that there was a plan, and this is all new environment to us, council, so I'm just trying to make sure. He did answer it. He did tell you he's working very closely with the police chief, fire chief, and inspection services. There is a plan in place, and it has to be approved to make sure it finds all the guidelines. So I don't know how much more you can explain tonight, but there is a
You just gave me more information than I got from Andy, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything further for Andy? Councilor Marquetti?
Yes, Andy, thank you. I think you're doing a good job. I just would like to know, I know that you're not supposed to mention people's names who are, who have the coronavirus, but some people would like to know, where this is happening, what group of people it's happening, and where in town. There is some concern. I mean, is this happening to grocery store workers? Is it happening to school employees? Is it happening mostly at the high rise? Is there a particular section of town that it's more prevalent than others? Some people would just like to know. I'm not asking for names, but I do think it's important that people know where this is happening and who they've had contact with, not just the people that you know, but there might be other people that may have had contact with, and they'd like to know who's being infected.
Obviously, I can't give locations. I can't give any HIPAA information. I can tell you that it's all over town. It's not in any concentrated area. I asked Alicia to do up a male, female, age range, and it's all over the map. Significant amounts in the 40, 50, and over bracket, but a couple of younger. Again, it's no one particular area, and I have had it in food workers. I have had it in unemployed people. It's all over the place. It's everywhere. There's no pattern that I can discern so far.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have any questions for Andy? And we'll move to Chief Woodson. All right, Chief Woodson? Thank you, Andy.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. Again, I'm coming from my 12-year-old's room, so disregard the Steph Curry picture I'm trying to hide in the background. I'm more of a Celtics Circa Larry Bird era guy. As far as the Emergency Operations Center, we continue to meet on a weekly basis, sometimes a few times a week, depending on the need. And I know you guys have heard me say this before, but the main players involved in those meetings are the Board of Health, the Fire Chief, who's our Emergency Management Director, the Chief Information Officer from the hospital, the Town Manager, the Finance Director, the Treasurer, the Town Council Chairman, Councilor Adams, staff from the DPW, command staff from IPD and from the Fire Department, members of the school. So we're trying to keep all the essential people in the loop here with what we're doing in our community. Like the Board of Health Director had mentioned earlier, we currently have 18 positive tests. Unfortunately, it was one death, but I did mention, and I'm going to continue to mention it. I said it at our last meeting, I believe last Monday, and I said it on our Facebook Live. Some communities are choosing not to post the actual data. They're choosing to just include Worcester County had X amount of positive cases. We at the EOC, and I commend all the men and women that are working there, we decided the best approach would be to be specific with Southbridge. Just as, Councilor Marchetti had brought up some concerns about information being reported about how bad things are in certain locations, and is that true? And I just felt that along with the other members of the EOC, that it's best to be transparent in the community. I hope I'm being clear on that. We have no intention on ever, unless we're ordered to do it, going to just breaking it down to Worcester County positive cases. I want to be Southbridge specific for the people that live in Southbridge, for the people that it affects every day. We have no intention on changing that. The EOC puts out daily notices. Thank you to Councilor Adams, who works very hard on that. Every day we talk, sometimes for, a couple hours a day, about the ongoing situation in our community. And I think that that's working very well, and I encourage anybody that's watching now or watching later on YouTube or cable access to keep going to the town website. That's where you're going to get the most accurate information. That's why we are set up the way that we are. So there's one single source of information. We certainly don't want any others, because we don't want rumors to start. I've been seeing things on social media now too about infections in our community and a high rate, and it's at one location or another location, and I can say, without violating anything under the regulations of the Board of Health or HIPAA, that most of what I'm reading is not true. So I guess that's all I can say about that. I just kind of want to touch a little bit about a few things that I've also seen, to use a word that we all seem to be familiar with lately. There's been a surge in our TIP 411, believe it or not, our TIP 411 crime reporting app, and it's constant. We usually get a lot of use out of it, but ever since the pandemic, and it kind of ratcheted up here the last week or so, we have gotten an influx of 411 tips on crimes that I never thought I'd see. But I want people to know that we are still trying to limit our exposure to our police officers to potentially getting this virus. So we're addressing serious threats to public safety. Any other issues that come up via TIP 411, they absolutely will be followed up on, but they may not be followed up on right away due to the pandemic. But what's never going to change, and I know my colleague on the fire side is on this call, we will continue to respond to any 911 emergency calls. That will absolutely not change. So if citizens have an emergency, call 911. I mentioned on, really quick here on Facebook Live last week, that we had also scams in the community. I don't know if councils have heard this from citizens, but I'll get to the most important one, where a call would be calling a citizen or a resident and asking for their bank account information so they can give them their $1,200 relief check. I can say now, without question, and I believe Councilor Adams even has that up on our updates. There's an FBI link on our updates, and if there isn't, there will be tomorrow. The government will never, ever, ever call you at your home and ask you for a bank account number. So please don't fall victim to that. You'd be amazed at the intelligence of some of the people in the community that I have spoken with that have fallen for similar scams. So if someone's calling you and threatening to hold up your relief check that you're entitled to from the government, do not give them any of your information. The government will never call you. The homeless issue, not to go over it again, but we have been working on that, Councilor Manna. That will be addressed. Well, today's Wednesday. I'm hoping by the end of the week we'll have something up and running and available, at least for release to the council, so they're aware of what's going on. There's been a surge too, I hate to keep using that word, in the homeless population in our community for obvious reasons, and we're doing everything we can to just keep everybody safe. On a positive note, because everything's so negative lately, one of my police officers, Jordan Witherspoon, today had a Facebook Live session where he read a story to all the elementary kids, and as I sit here tonight, we had about 6,000 people that reached, and about 3,000 views. People actually watched it, so it's a good thing for the community. It keeps some normalcy for the children. I just want to give a shout out to Jordan for doing a great job. We're going to continue to do that every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Also, a few more positive notes here. The restaurants in our community have stepped up big, and I certainly don't want to advocate for one or the other, but you've got places like Finally Lisa's that are sending the fire and police side of the house food every day, lunch for every shift. It's just unbelievable. Jeremy from the Elm Center is donating gift certificates like I've never seen. Jeremy's customers are going into the Elm Center and taking out gift certificates and asking him to give them to needy families, and he's calling me, and we're getting those out in the community. Simon from Pizza Chef, again, every single day, 7 days a week, pizza for a family. Brothers Pizzas donated food. Please, continue to take out food from these people and every business in the community. because it's only gonna help our restaurants. I believe, our next Facebook Live will be tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Councilor Adams and I will be, up and running if everybody wants to, watch and see what's going on in the community, what's going on at the EOC. And then our next EOC meeting is scheduled for Monday at 9 o'clock. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Any questions for the chief? All right. Thank you, chief. Thanks for all the hard work that you and your department are doing, and appreciate all to stay safe out there.
Thank you.
Chief Woodson?
Chief Normandin.
I'm sorry, Chief Normandin.
That's okay. Can you hear me okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Very good. So obviously we've already talked a few times about the sheltering issue for the homelessness in town, and I don't want to say much more on that. We are working on it, and again, like Edward has said, hopefully we should have something in place by the end of the week. This is multifaceted, multi-jurisdictional. You just can't put a tent up and have people stay there. So needless to say, we need to go through the right process and do it right so that if the tent gets put up, we just don't want to have any bad situations happen with that. First of all, thank you everybody for coming in tonight and going on the Zoom thing that Councilor has set up here tonight. Right now, Harrington Memorial Hospital, I spend about 45 minutes to 1 hour every morning at 8:15. They have an update morning conference call with all their staff at the hospital. They've been very fluent with their information with me. The biggest thing that really comes down to where we are at today with planning for the future, for the surge is what we'll call it. We do have a surge plan here in town, and for people that don't know too much about it, I'll give a quick example. Say at this point today or tomorrow, all of a sudden they get in 100 patients with complaints of COVID-type symptoms. The hospital has the ability to handle some of those victims. They'll process them through their system at the hospital very quickly and as smoothly as they can. Obviously, the ones that are much more ill will stay at the hospital or be transferred to a tertiary care facility, probably in Worcester or Springfield. The patients that are normal symptoms, low-grade fever, either positive and or negative COVID symptoms, we have the Armory or the community center in town, which is called our surge area, which is called the ISCU. This facility will be used and staffed by Harrington Hospital facility personnel, along with their own security. It will be run for 24 hours, 7 days a week. We have not opened this facility at this point. There are many other facets in regards to that facility. Obviously, the Meals on Wheels prepare there. So we have been in initial talks since last week moving forward to say, are we ready if we need it? That's kind of a scary scenario for everybody to endure. I'm sure you've all seen the local news with the DCU ramping up in Worcester. That's exactly what we've done here in town. The Armory can have about 200 cots for patients or people that are experiencing symptoms or well people. So we need it's in either direction. It can go either way. We can put well people there with minor scenarios and medical complaints, and not so much people that are like super severely sick. Obviously, those people would stay at the hospital. So with the EOC, part of my job has been working with the hospital and getting the surge plan taken care of, and making sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. This is huge. The next thing that we've been working on, and I'm kind of the grim reaper of this meeting tonight because these are a couple of things I'm not going to go in complete detail of what we've been doing. We've actually been in contact with the 3 local funeral homes and discussing transportation needs along with the hospital. As victims do pass away, there's a special protocol that individual funeral home directors have to use. We've supplied them with additional PPE. Obviously, the hospital's been well on board with that. The other really, I think, what is most important for you people as counselors should push out is that we've set up the housing system for healthcare providers and also first responders at the hotel and conference center. We've been in contact, thankfully, through Chief Woodson, Chip Holmes' phone number. We were all able to get on board last week at some time and set up a wellness housing situation. Right now, I have one firefighter that has a couple of sick family members at home that's attending and using the housing. And I believe as of today, I think they have 22 hospital employees using the housing at the Southbridge Hotel. And I cannot say enough. Chip Norton got involved with our conversation and our conference call and was like, yep, whatever you need. It is very limited. There is no food there, so the people that are staying there are on their own. Obviously, like Chief Woodson said, every vendor, food vendor in town has been gracious enough to provide food for everybody. So that's the type of situation. So basically, an employee of the police department, the fire department, or the hospital can take up residence at the hotel during this time and be safe from not bringing their COVID or any other sickness back to their family. I think this is very important to keep our staffing levels out that we're at right now. I just know the last conference call we had in this forum, I had a firefighter that had a fever. He was sent to the CVS in Shrewsbury, and thankfully he had a negative COVID test. He came back to work as of, I believe, yesterday, back to service. So we are at full strength right now, and knock on wood, my guys, along with the police department personnel, we are the first line for our town agencies. We go in and, no matter what the situation is, it being a car accident and or someone with a fever, we're ready to go. We're in direct contact with these people, and I'm very proud of the public safety aspect of this. And obviously, and I'll say Andy and his group, they're out and about everywhere too. So we're all working together. As me being the Grim Reaper in this, the funeral, I think that is probably the most, the desperate where we are today. We have to put those plans together, and we have. So I think that's pretty much it that I have wrapping up. I myself have done a storybook today on Facebook Live. I will say that I don't have 5,000 views, but I do know the school department grabbed that, and they're going to use that for their educational purposes for their school students through all their conference calls that they have with their class. I'm only up to about 900, but my Facebook is not as large as the police department's, but we'll keep pushing this out through the fire department. I have another gentleman set up next week. Again, getting back to the EOC, I appreciate everything that everybody's done. We're all working together in tandem. Obviously, from my little report here tonight, this is all stuff we'd like to keep to a minimum, not let that out to the public. It is sensitive information, but there are plans in the work as we move forward, and hopefully there is no surge. So that's all I had, Chairman.
Thank you. Chief Woodson, you had one more thing, I believe?
Yeah, if I could just add, that typical fire department trying to be like the police department and copying us, but that's okay. I don't know if this is being streamed on another platform. My animal control officer just texted me and she wanted me to mention this, and it's great because we're wearing many different hats lately at my police department, and I think it's important for the council to know. So far, we've donated 227 pounds of dry cat food and dog food, or it's been donated to us, 20 cans of wet food, 7 bags of treats, 40 pounds of cat litter. All of those donations that we've been taking in have been donated, and they're in the community now to needy families. So I just think it's important to mention that because our department, again, they certainly are wearing a lot of hats lately, and we're getting as much food, and can't forget the pets. We're getting as much as we can out of the community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And just one other thing before we let these gentlemen go. We've received a lot of tremendous public support, not only in the food, but, Dave's father-in-law, Russ, came to the EOC and donated glasses, safety glasses, a box full to the first responders. Senator Fatman had gathered some goods and delivered those to the EOC as well. So the public support as we work through this has been tremendous. I guess the final message is, as long as we continue as this governor had said today, and president said, and other officials, health officials, is while some of the numbers are starting to look okay, we can't take our foot off the pedal, and we have to keep, unfortunately, working this stay at home and using good social distancing, practicing washing hands, and work our way through it. Are there any other questions for the three before they leave?
Yeah.
All right, seeing none, thank you. We're going to move on. The next four items are questions that have come up from counselors relative to just correspondence that had come up from the town manager's office, and wish to have a discussion on it. So the first one is to discuss and review the Town of Southbridge Executive Order Number 1 issued on March 31st, 2020 by Town Manager Ron San Angelo. That was, Ron, if you could, this Town Manager, if you could just explain the reason for this and the timeline, because, you know, I know I had, and I know I'm sure other councils may have questions on this. I had gotten, you know, some feedback from union people about how sudden this was, and the pushback, and just the timing, and while I understand this is a fluid situation, that, you know, that act had been out for a couple, at least over a week, and it just had to be done pretty much last minute. So if you could just explain that to the council, and I'm sure if anybody has questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it is interesting, as you know. Well, let me start off this. On March 30th, I got a call from our Chief Labor Counsel, Dean Moskis, as everybody is familiar with, telling me some of the important aspects of a new law that was put into effect of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and expressing concerns about the impact it might have on our town. And I'm going to highlight two key areas of the law. It's very complicated. Myself and the HR director spent a lot of time both talking with Dean and talking among ourselves about this law and how it impacts us. But the two key provisions of most importance to the town were a provision that allows up to 12 weeks of paid sick leave and expanded family and medical leave act at 2/3 for qualifying reason. And one of the reason now that you can take this change to the Family and Medical Leave Act. Now, first understand that family medical leave is normally unpaid, but this 12 weeks would be paid. But the key reason, item number 5, that talks about is caring for his or her child whose school or place of care is closed, or a child care provider is unavailable due to COVID-19 related reasons. So we can understand that a lot of employees may have children home from school right now that they may need to take care of. And the particular concern of the labor attorney was right now allowing our police, fire, emergency responders to leave work paid for 12 weeks would not be in the best interest of the people of Southbridge, in terms of we need these major first providers and responders to be able to be there when the call comes in. And that was a very huge concern about losing God knows how many police, firemen, DPW workers. And the second provision is an important provision too. It allows employees up to 2 weeks, 80 hours, or a part-time employee 2-week equivalent of paid sick leave based upon the higher of their regular rate of pay or their applicable state or federal minimum tax. Now, the interesting part of that is that all employees are entitled to that. So if let's say an employee's husband or child was quarantined as a result of they thought they had the disease, they would be entitled to 2 weeks paid sick leave. Or if they got sick, they would be entitled to 2 weeks paid sick leave. It also allows, you remember I said 12 weeks of paid time if you have a child at home. You can also use that 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks of the 12 weeks is supposed to be unpaid, but you can use that 2 weeks of sick time for the first 2 weeks, so in effect get paid for the full 12 weeks. Attorney Moskis made it clear to me that he was going to be advising all of his client towns. The federal law allowed a provision to exempt certain employees from the act. As I said before, because we just simply can't right now afford to lose these first responders for up to 3 months of time. And he's called me on the 30th, and he provided me the executive order on the 31st, and it had to be in place for the 1st. So it was a massive amount of time and discussion of that, but that was the reason for the quick action, and I sent it out. He gave me the wording, and he also gave me letters to provide to each of our union leaders to instruct them that. We copied, of course, those department heads, and I forward out the information to town councilors. You are absolutely correct. The next day, as that was given out, there was some pushback from the union leaders, and quite frankly, I appreciated the working relationship we had them as a result. They believe the exclusion went too far. Union members weren't concerned about the 12-week provision, which was really our largest fear, losing an employee for 3 months. But they were concerned about the 2-week, the 80-hour provision. And if you understand how the process works, if a police officer or a fireman got COVID-19 as a result of their work, they would go on injured on duty anyway, and they would be totally taken care of. So for them, the 2 weeks wasn't that important specifically. But let's say a wife or a husband of a police officer got COVID-19, and the officer had to stay home for 2 weeks to take care of that family member or child. They would not get paid under injured on duty. So they raised that issue, both the police and fire union raised that issue. DPW doesn't have injured on duty, so DPW and all of the unions said, you know, all other town employees are going to get this, but those of us who are first responders, who are in theory in the most danger because they're out responding, are going to lose these benefits. All three of the unions, kicked it back through their department heads. A conversation with the department head, called up our attorney and said, I believe this goes too far. The unions have expressed these concerns. He had known that because he got the same kind of expression from other unions in other towns. We drafted up. The next part of this discussion was the administrative order to allow the police, fire, and DPW workers to get the same benefit as any other employee. In other words, while they were exempted from the full federal act by giving them back the 80 hours of administrative leave, they were protected that if they or their family members got sick, particularly if their family members got sick in police and fire, they would get the 80 hours, and DPW gets the full 80 hours, even if they get sick. So that was the purpose of this. I actually called each union leader and had the department heads in my office and had the conversation with them, explained to them the leave policy and what we were doing. You know, they would all, you know, like the full federal benefit, but obviously we can't do that. But it seemed to be that we resolved their concerns, and since then I've had no other major complaints from the unions. It seems to have worked itself through, and I think it both protects the citizens of our community, at the same time allows police and fire some of the same benefits that every other employee would be entitled to.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So, yes, I did have a problem when I saw that come through the email, because for me, I take this as it being a change in a policy. So especially for our union members, it's like a change in their contract, basically. I feel that this should have came to the town council, and we should have vetted it out in the town council. Well, but it was just done, everything was done last minute, and you're telling me you spent an enormous amount of time speaking with the attorney on this. Well, I do want to look at the attorney for that, but I don't know if this was actually necessary for our town. And has every other town in the state of Massachusetts adopted this policy?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman. So thank you for Councilor Mann for your question. I can't say that the conversations were long with Dee, although we had a number of small conversations. And frankly, it was a lot of conversation within a 2-day period, because I said to you, I got this the night about 4 o'clock, the call from Dee on the 30th, and the actual language of the executive order on the 31st, and it had to be implemented by the 1st. Now, to be clear, there's a difference here, and I had the same conversation. There's legislative policy, which goes to town council, and then there's administrative policy, which is done by the appointing authority and done by the town manager. This is a administrative policy. It's a short-term policy in nature to deal with this one specific issue. I was assured by legal counsel that this was the responsibility of the town manager, and that we had to do it on a very quick basis, because if we let this go past April 1st, then employees could claim this benefit, and once they claimed it, we couldn't stop it. Now, I can't speak to what all Maricopa County's other clients did. I did have a conversation with Auburn, who already had in place the administrative policy for 2 weeks, even before this law came out. She did it for other reasons. I can't say every town is involved with this, but if you don't have this exclusion in place, then in fact you could lose a police officer, a fireman, and what particularly scares me is the ambulance driver, the paramedics at the firehouse for 12 weeks, and that at this time is we just cannot do that for public safety reasons.
So if I may follow up with that, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So technically, if a police officer's wife or child or husband or family member possibly, or somebody that's living in their home got sick with the COVID-19, then technically I don't think the police officer would be able to work. I believe they would have to quarantine themselves because now they're exposed to the virus. So, but my concern is that you say it's, we don't have a say in this because this is more administrative, but when it in fact impacts the contract of the union workers, well, we do have a say in that, because that does technically come down to us, and we have a town council, we approve the union members' contracts. So, you know, this should have been, I'm not done, this really should have been, I mean, even the second you found out about it, you should have sent something out to the town council, informing the town council, the entire, there were 9 people, you should have informed us.
Mr. Chairman?
Hold on, before you answer it, I'll let you answer it.
Why do you keep muting me? I wasn't done. You keep muting me.
If I did, I apologize. I didn't mean to. I was going to.
I'm beginning to get a conscience that.
No, I didn't think I did. I was going to mine. So if I hit yours by accident, I'm sorry, because we're pretty close on the screen here, on my screen. Just for the public, we had 2, and we're talking about both. So I want to make sure that we read both that we're talking about. So we'll handle these both agenda items together because they're together. So the first one was to review the executive order. The second one was to discuss and review the administrative leave policy for purposes related to coronavirus emergency responders issued by Town Manager Ron Sangelo on April 1st, 2020. Just for the record, so because we are commingling these, just want to make sure that we're talking about the same. So before I go to Town Manager's response, did you have something else you wanted to say, Councilman? Because I think he was going to respond to you.
Yeah, no, I just want to say I really and honestly feel that we still should have come to the town council. And if anything, we should have been informed about this before he went and put his signature on the paper. It's like, we're not, I don't feel as a counselor that I'm being informed on these decisions that are impacting our town and that could potentially impact, you know, the budget, the taxpayers' money. I mean, it's pretty important that we're all on the same page and we all know what's going on.
Okay. So just to be clear, Councilman, I didn't know about either one of these policies until I got the email at the same time everybody else did. So nobody on our end from leadership on town council had any conversation with the town manager, nor was even aware that this was an issue until I received the email along with everybody else, just for the record. Go ahead, Mr. Town
And I know, and you did let me know that too when I discussed it with you.
Yeah, okay.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. And Councilor Rana, let me try to be as clear as possible. This act is a new law that gave additional benefits to employees. It's not part of their existing contract, so it wasn't a negotiable item or had no impact whatsoever on their current collective bargaining agreement because it's completely brand new. The issue that's important is you are correct. If a family member of a police officer or firefighter got sick, you're right that the employee would have to stay home, be quarantined with their family member. The difference is without the administrative order, they would they would stay home and they would have to use their current sick time to be paid for that time while they were quarantined. What my executive order does is give them the same benefit as all other employees would be entitled to, an additional 80 hours that doesn't go against their sick bank. This was to protect the police and firemen to make sure they got the same benefit of others' employees. And again, it's above and beyond what was in their collective bargaining agreement. That's why it has nothing to do with the collective bargaining agreement. In terms of taxpayers having to pay, you are correct. If it's time that they would be paid instead of their salary time, it would be sick time. So it's the same money in the budget, but instead they would be paid sick time instead of their regular salary line. So it doesn't have any change to the budget process either. So it's not a collective bargaining issue. It's not, some new budget request. It's all within the existing thing, and it's new benefits. But I'll have to say that I really feel that the police and fire, DPW workers around the line deserve the same benefit. And I think that the original act given us by the town attorney, which was the executive order excluding them from this whole thing, I think it was important to do it because you had to stop the 12-week provision before it actually came in place. I also think the adjustment we made to allow the 80 hours of time was extremely important, and I think that the union members appreciated the fact that as soon as we could, we changed that. Again, at the town council, in providing information, it was literally provided right after I got it from Dean Moskis. Within hours, all the town council got the memo all at the same time. Didn't have a lot of chance to talk to individual councilors about it because I literally got the documents on the 31st and I had to go out for the 1st. So you got it as quickly as I could possibly provide it to you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to follow up with that. So you say it's a new law that had to be adopted, right? The new law had to be adopted. That's why you did the executive order, Mr. Town Manager. So it was a new law, but it didn't have to be adopted. Am I correct in saying that?
No, the new law is by the federal government. The federal government passed the law. What I had to do through the executive order, the federal law, the new law as I'll call it, had a provision in it to exclude emergency responders. So the new law was adopted by Congress. I put in an executive order that excluded them from that act.
Okay. So, but it does impact the budget unless we're getting reimbursed for this. And so technically the town council we should have had some information besides the signed executive order that you sent out to the town council, because you're not going to tell me that you got Dee's email, talked to him, and then signed it like within a couple hours. You're not going to tell me that. So as soon as you knew what came down from American O'Connell to you, you should have sent out to the town council, this is what I'm planning on doing. You should have gave us some sort of heads up, some sort of information. I believe that we as a council should have been made aware of that, and we should have been able to discuss it.
So,
And
Mr. Chairman?
if you would have thought that this was an emergency, well, we are in a state of emergency. We could have had an emergency town council meeting on that. And because everybody's technically at home, we all could have accommodated. So I'm disappointed.
Okay, Mr. Chairman? Just to be clear again through you, Mr. Chairman, is that there is no budget impact on this. If employees are paid from their salary time, or sick time, it's the same budgeted dollars. So there is no financial impact on the town. It just means instead of employees working for that 2-week period, they might be home taking administrative time and getting paid the same pay. So there is no impact at all on it. And again, Councilman, I've said it twice and I'll say it again, is I was received this information on March 30th. I got the executive order on the 31st, and you guys, I believe, received it on the 31st along with everybody else. So the unions, the department heads, and town councilors received it literally back to back. It all went out at the same time, and that was on the advice of our legal counsel in order to implement this prior to April 1st.
So I guess, Mr. Town Manager, a couple of things on my end. If you're telling me right now that legal counsel sent you this information and said, hey, okay, it's a priority, and you dumped the emails to the department heads, the unions, and town councils back to back, did you ever think to bring the union in and say, hey, this is coming down the pike, this is our representation from our attorney, this is some of the ramifications? Instead, it's a knee-jerk reaction from the attorney, get this out to the union, and then we're going to come back a day later with administrative leave policy, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit in a minute. But that's my point. Had we had a conversation with the union first and brought them into the office and said, guys, ladies, gentlemen, this is what we've been given. I have to give out this executive order. This is some of the ramifications. And they would have come back and say, hey, well, this is a little bit of what we think. Is this something you can talk to your legal counsel? And kind of, instead of this a blanket order and then we have to backtrack. I mean, it's just more of last minute type things. And granted, he gave it to you last minute, which is a whole other conversation we're going to have, because Open Mage seems to be sending stuff out to all their departments and stuff. But if you could answer that, that'd be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a fair point. You know, we, as I said to you, we got it the 30th that night. Me and Kim started talking about it. We didn't get the, we didn't have the full law, but we got some summary information and explanation from Dee, and we had a lot of conversations trying to understand the impact of this law on frankly, all the employees. We understood the benefits that all employees would get. We understood, and we looked at what the impact would be on the union members, and we understood and we were comfortable that we couldn't allow for the 12 weeks. We also recognized that the 2-week period of time the police and fire would get paid IUD. We didn't really think, I guess I'd say that we didn't understand the law well enough to think about the impact on husbands and wives and children if they were sick and how that would play out for their sick time. And I wish I had much more time to really understand the federal act. And then maybe I would have done it a little differently, but just because of the nature of the timeline and the strict conversation that had to be put out before the first, that I had to act quickly on this. And then I agree with you. As soon as I found out the unions had concerns, I met with the different department heads, the police chief, the fire chief, DPW director, our HR director, and we worked through the issues, and I immediately called the union leaders and worked through it. To their credit, I will say this, the union leaders were extremely good in terms of working with me to resolve the issues. I think they were happy that I responded quickly to their concerns, and that their concerns, the major concerns, were addressed literally immediately. But if I had more time, I think that we could have done a lot more evaluation of this law. But I relied on the attorneys who had evaluated this law and gave me the recommendations and acted upon their recommendations.
So I just want to come back to Dee's assertion that there's a difference between administrative policy and legislative policy. Because we all go by the charter. That is the Bible for the town of Southbridge. That's what everybody references when we do something wrong. And quite frankly, I read this and it says that the manager shall serve as a resource to the council. The council shall provide policy and political leadership for the town. The manager shall bring policy issues to the council to consider in making policy choices, and shall then implement the policies chosen by the council. So nowhere in that does it delineate between an administrative type policy and a legislative type policy. So I would love to know, without, I get we're already with this, but I have some serious concerns with the legal opinions that come out of that council, because it says that you will manage the personnel system. Also, your letter also says that you are the appointing authority, which you are, subject to confirmation of the council. So there's a check and balance there. Also, your order says, your executive order says that you're the chief executive of town government. I don't see anywhere in the charter where it says that you are the chief executive of town government. And I don't want to get into a big conversation about charter tonight. It's just wording. I know Dee's assertion and your assertion, I'm not finished. Dee's assertion and your assertion in the past is that you're a chief executive, which you have executive type powers, but a lot of those powers come through council. So Council Manor, I believe, is correct in trying to, there should have been some kind of conversation with the council, because the council is the policy-making board. So your order is administrative leave policy. It's not an administrative leave order, it's a policy. So you implemented policy without any conversation with council. And I think it's something that I just tried to struggle with the way this was delivered and the quickness of it. Granted, there's the state law, but I do have a difference of opinion when it comes to that labor council. He's our labor council. He's not a charter council. So, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
So, first of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and this is not the first time we've had this conversation about an executive authority and legislative authority. It seems to be a discussion we've had in a number of different areas. So I clearly understand your position on that. I admit that I disagree, and Dee disagrees with the position. And I don't want to get into a big, like you, I don't want to get into a big charter discussion tonight. But Dee's position, and as explained to me, because I asked that question knowing this conversation was going to come up, Dee's position is that we are in the town manager, town council form of government, and that all executive authority resides with the town manager, all legislative authority rests with the town council. And the wording that you talked about and we've had conversation about in terms of the town manager is the chief administrative officer. Again, we can have Dee come in and talk to us about it. He says that's just one role of the town manager. By nature, manager, town council form of government, the executive authority is part of that. And if you read the charter, you'll see there's all kinds of executive authority granted on the town manager, use separate personnel and appointing, all those kind of things. So I don't think, at least in his position, in my position, that the term administrative authority is a sole function. It's one function of all the roles of the town manager. Now, if you read the charter, and I spent a lot of time looking at this again, is there's nowhere in the charter that gives any executive authority to the town council either. So if I don't have it, nobody has it, because the charter is also very clear on who has the legislative authority and derives that with the council, but doesn't say anything about the executive authority. But again, we can have this debate and bring Dee in and get an opinion or whatever. It's not for tonight, but I understand your position, and I've understood your position for some time on this issue. We just happen to disagree, and at some point, I think we've got to get clarity between us exactly how this is going to be interpreted.
Well, yeah, again, I'm not going to belabor this point tonight because the policy is in place. We'll have another discussion about this later on. But it is spelled out in the charter pretty clearly what the role of a manager is, what their authority is, what the town council is, what the confirmation is, what policy is, who makes policy, and all that. It's very clear in the agenda. But I will tell you this, for the record. I do not want you to spend any money with Dee Moskis to try to figure out what this means. And Dee Moskis will not be the attorney that will provide this council guidance on what he thinks of the interpretation of the charter. Because we need a different, because he's our labor council, not the expert on the charter. We need somebody, and maybe perhaps through the charter review, that we have a couple councilors that are willing, that their terms are ended, that would like to take part in that charter review, to really pin down this issue and get some clarification on it. Because, like everybody wants to say, the charter is the charter.
Mr. Chairman,
and it's different parts of it.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree to you that the Charter Revision Commission needs to look at the issue. And I also think the Charter Revision needs to decide its form of government and what powers it wants and what parties. Clearly I understand council manager form of government versus a selectman town administrator form of government. And I look at this differently. I've served in both. But I think that the town council clearly wants to, and the citizens want a more town administrative type of government, then they need to change that. But I agree with you. I think this is a charter question that needs to be determined and cleared up once and for all.
Can I say something?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Councilman McCarthy.
I did email the town manager after he sent this out, because I was a little confused about what exactly this Family Leave Act was, and what benefits were you taking away from town employees. I think the way you explained it tonight, are you saying that they were entitled to 80 hours, you took that away from them, but you gave them back 2 weeks on top of what they already had? I was a little confused about that.
If I could, through you, Mr. Chairman. So, Councilor Marquetti, the original federal law gave them a whole host of different benefits. The two key benefits were the 12 weeks of paid family medical leave for taking care of a child. That was one part. Also, the law allowed them, under a different section, allowed them 80 hours of additional sick time. When, through the executive order, I excluded them from the federal act, they lost both of those benefits. Through the administrative policy I issued later, they got back the 80 hours of sick time. So just like all other employees, if they were to get sick or a family member were to get sick from this virus, they wouldn't have to use their existing sick time for the first 80 hours.
Okay, that's clear. And the unions are all okay with this?
They initially were not, when the executive order first came out. They gave me feedback through the various department heads. We met, I went back to legal counsel, we adapted the administrative policy, and they seem to, I have not heard any other complaints from them since we've adopted the new administrative leave policy.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the town manager. Just a couple of things, I'm not going to split hairs here because I think you guys already beat that down about the CEO or the CAO of our town, and obviously it has to be looked at down the road. But what I am surprised at when I received this email was it took me about 10 minutes to pull up the actual law, and I understood at the very beginning the 12 weeks. It's in black and white. Also, I believe it's 56 and 57 that talks about who emergency responders are. So, though I understand why this happened, obviously we don't want to lose first responders in a case like this for 12 weeks at a time, or at least the first 12 weeks. I am concerned the fact that this was, I believe, passed by Congress on the 18th of March. I could be wrong. Our legal counsel didn't tell you until the 30th. My phone is available to you, any counselor, any resident, anybody, 24/7. I believe, hopefully, the other counselors are the same way. But not finding out until the 31st is kind of disappointing. We get this email, this is what's happening. But my understanding from the union leaders is that they just got a quick email and they were surprised by this as well. Understanding that we would like to have this signed before the 1st of April, because that's when the law does take effect. Doesn't mean you have to. So if you, obviously on the 1st, you have a firefighter or a police officer or a DPW worker, or first responder, whatever it may be, on the 1st of April say, you know, I need to take those 2 weeks off. I got it. You know, that's going to happen. But there was no time you worked with the chief's department head or union reps until you submitted this. Now, they came back and complained to you. I know that for a fact because they were surprised just like everybody else. And just because you haven't heard any complaints about this issue doesn't mean that the morale of our first responders have not been affected. And they have. We already had issues with town employees because of what is happening right now. Everybody's job title changed with this virus. This happens in mass issues throughout the world. This happens within the military, the police, the fire. Things change, and our job description changes with it. That doesn't mean that we find out on the 30th and we had a time to contact the chair or one other council on the 30th and say, this is coming down the pike, I don't know exactly how it's gonna look, but I just want you to be aware of this, but then find out on the 31st, and then by the 1st it takes effect, it does kill the morale of our first responders, those that, basically, you're telling them they can't do this. I can go into detail about the chief executive and all that great stuff. It just, I guess I'm very disappointed because I don't think it's what you see in front of you right now. I think it's what you see down the road when it comes to the morale and the trust of the leadership within the town. Now, I'm just going off, and Mr. Chair, tell me if I'm wrong here. I'm just going off the executive order. The policy order is another story. I'll let somebody else speak while I pull my paperwork. But again, I'm just a little disappointed that we weren't aware of this beforehand. We could have pulled an emergency meeting. We could have had a conversation about it and worked it out and worked with the union leaders and possibly the chiefs and department heads instead of just coming down this and then the next day come out with a policy to change things because this wasn't thoroughly thought through. And we're paying our counsel, our legal counsel, to give us proper advice and timely advice. So I am disappointed in this whole thing, and I don't think this is the last time we're going to hear about this issue. But Mr. Chair, I'm going to pass it back to you while I pull up the policy.
Thank you. Councilor Mann?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you again, and I'm sorry I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, and I apologize. Councilor Adams, you couldn't have said that any better. Thank you very much for that. So, in section 2-4-2, it does say, of the charter, I just want to make sure I have the right, hold on just a minute. Okay, so in section 2-4-2, the council may enact bylaws and other measures and rules and regulations not inconsistent with this charter govern its own proceedings and other matters pertaining to the exercise of its powers and the performance of its duties. And it also states, too, that for the chairperson, in section 2-9-1, actually 2-9-2, the chairperson shall preside at meetings of the town council, as he does, shall be recognized as head of the town government for all ceremonial purposes and by the governor of the Commonwealth in case of an emergency. We're in a state of emergency, so if anyone should have been contacted with regards to this emergency executive order that now I'm finding out the law was passed on the 18th and we didn't get until the 30th, and the 31st we didn't actually get the email until, Jack should have at least been notified, because Jack is the head of, he is the one that we look to when there's an emergency declared by the governor, and that protocol was not followed.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Adams?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize, my mic was on there, I should have turned it off. And this is a simple couple questions real quick to the town manager. On the policy part, via your email, you said the attached administrative leave policy gives them back the 80 hours of additional sick time. Kind of reading over this, and I don't know if Councilor Marchetti, maybe that's what he was bringing up as well. When I'm looking actually at the emergency responders policy that you wrote, taking effect of 1 April, you got number 1 that talks about the 10 days paid administrative leave for police officers and so forth all the way. And then number 2, it says town manager may also grant up to 10 days of paid administrative leave. And again, this may have been brought up. I apologize if I didn't hear it right. Shouldn't there be an or in there, or are we talking 160 hours?
So, no, it's 80 hours, absolutely. Let me first be clear that I did not write this. This was directly given to me by Labor Council, so I did not write this. It clearly is 80 hours. All the unions and staff was notified of it. It's 80 hours. I think it's okay. You could, I guess, play with the or not. I think it works either way. The issue is, again, I want to stress that the issue of this leave is not only for the employee itself, because the police and fire, like I said, they get injured on duty pay. But again, one would expect that if a police officer or fireman was exposed to COVID-19, not through work, but through another family member, they would also be entitled to get this. So it would be not injured on duty, it would be, they wouldn't have to use 80 hours of their current sick time, they would be able to use this 80 hours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Just to follow up, Mr. Chair. I would say in the law, it says, or in there. Again, just throwing that out there. Now, and I may be confusing this, it says under the law, it says 2 weeks, 80 hours of paid sick leave at the employee's regular rate of pay. Now, the second paragraph down, where it says from that paragraph or to the next paragraph, it says 2 weeks of paid sick leave at 2/3 the employee's regular rate. Does this still apply to number 1 and number 2 of your policy?
So it's a full 80 hours, David, and we actually had some discussions with the fire department because they have a completely different structure in terms of this, but the federal law gives 80 additional hours, period. It's not really about weeks, it's about hours.
Okay, I guess that was my one major concern, was that you were providing them, again, I completely understand the law and the purpose behind the law.
Right.
I was just concerned that it went from 80 hours to 160 because some of the word or is missing. All right, that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor.
Questions on that? Anybody else on those? So Ron, go ahead, Councilman.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute, and I apologize. So, and we've had an argument over this. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for you. We've had an argument over this before, and I'm just going to point something out in the executive order number 1. And I know Ron said that it was just a blanket, but I mean, if he's going to adopt something for our town, it should be correct. And it says that the town manager is the chief executive of the town government, when in our charter it says he's the chief administrative officer. I mean, it may be something small, but I mean, to me, it's not small.
To you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So first, thank you, Councilor Manning, and that's been a long-standing conversation between me and the chairman. Again, I'm going to stress my position is that I am the chief executive officer of the town. That position is verified with legal counsel that is the position. Now, I understand the confusing nature of the charter's words of chief administrative officer. The chief labor counsel who I worked with on this issue clearly says that's one of the functions, but that was never intended to be all of the functions. In fact, the charter might be written to be transferred to a town manager, city council form of government, that inherently in that form of government, the town manager is the chief executive officer. So if the chairman wants to get a legal opinion from some other attorney, I think this is consistent across the state of all town manager, town council form of governments, which are city forms of the governments. That's the way it works. But the town council clearly is entitled to get another legal opinion and look at this in the light of the comments that were made tonight, and maybe they'll come to a different conclusion.
So, yeah, I'm not going to belabor this point any longer because we've talked about it. You're right that there are certain provisions that set up the way governments are run, but just like anything else, your charter is the blueprint for how you go about the responsibilities and articulating those responsibilities. So you could say all day long, and I'm not the attorney, but you could say all day long that in this form of government, this is how it's supposed to be, generally, but then your charter specifies the additional limitations on that relationship between town council and town manager type of government. So while he may be very familiar with the city of Worcester's town manager city form of government, and that blueprint or constitution or charter that Worcester may have, and that Auburn may have, and that Millbury may have, the towns he represents, they all have different charters, but the powers are all derived throughout the charter, and I'll just leave it at that. I think to the point on this, the overarching thing is the lack of communication, not only to the council, but to the union. Because to just drop an executive order and not have any conversation with the union before you drop an executive order, in which is already a tense situation for those employees, we're telling these employees to be out there on the front lines, going into homes, going into situations that they have no idea what they're getting themselves into. We're saying, go up and do it. And you have people that are staying home and getting paid, and we're throwing these guys out here, and now we have other employees getting hazard pay, and that's a discussion for another day. To just drop something like that without saying, and bring them into your office and say, look, police officer so-and-so, firefighter, DPW person, we appreciate everything you're doing. We know the situation that you're in. This is an order that's come through. This is a policy that came through. Unfortunately, I have to put out to protect you and the town. I have to put this executive order through. We'll work through the issues. Do you have any issues? What do you think? This is how it's going to look. This is the way it's written. It's just bad form. And Council Adams is absolutely right. You drop that order. I'm in the EOC. I'm pulling out, and the union guys are about to take off my head as I walk out the door. And I'm sitting here trying to keep everybody calm and leave the town and say, let's get together. And guys, go out there and do your job. And we're stabbing in the back. It's just a bad way to do business. I'll just leave it at that.
So, Mr. Chairman, I do want to respond because I'm a very strong protector of my staff and my team. And like you, I have a tremendous amount of respect for my police officers, firemen, and all my staff. So I do my best to have a good relationship with them. We've done 2 rounds of union contracts, and that relationship has been solid. And in almost 5 years of time that I've been in Southbridge, the relationship between the unions and town government has been very positive and a very working relationship. I wish that the legal counsel had given this to me a week before it had to be implemented and given me the time. My utmost responsibility, at least in my opinion, having been given it to the actual the documentation on the 31st, with the knowledge that's on the 1st, my ultimate responsibility was to make sure that our first responders were on the road and available for citizens in emergency. If the life or death of citizens are involved, we need to make sure staff is in place. Of course, as soon as we raised the problem with the wording of that contract, we immediately responded and took care of it and resolved the issue with the unions. Again, if I had this thing a week before time, it would have been a different way to handle it. But I had to act within the time frame I had to act, and I did what I thought was best at the time. It's frankly quite easy to kind of go back and second guess it after it occurred, and we know that. But I have to act on the timing that's given to me, and I acted in the way I believe was in the best interest of this community.
So I'm going to be done after this. You threw it out at 3:57 on the end of your day and dumped it off to the unions and said, here you go, and created all this. There would have been no problem, Mr. Town Manager, to say, hey, chief, union head, DPW union head, I need to talk to you. We have all this conference call ability, and said, this is what's coming down the pipe, gentlemen, ladies. Unfortunately, here's the order, a little communication. You can talk all you want about all the goodwill you did for 5 years in union negotiations. It got flushed down the toilet with this one decision. Because now there's a bad taste for that union. You may have fixed it, you may have thought you fixed it, but there's a lot of grumblings out there because of the fact that when you throw a thing like that, you got cops, you got everybody going, they don't care about us. You may come back and fix it, but the initial reaction is, you really don't care about us. So, anybody else have a comment before we go on?
Yeah, I would like to say something.
Go ahead.
You know, we are in a different time. Right now, the world has changed. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Emergency. A couple weeks ago, you pushed forward an emergency declaration, Mr. Chairman, where you gave the town manager a lot of power here, and you said, whereas it's critical to take immediate public action So I don't think we ought to keep pounding on the town manager over this. He took immediate action. It's over with. I think we should just move on now. And if you don't like it, you shouldn't have pushed that emergency order forward that you did. So I don't really want to keep going on and on about this. Let's just let it go for now. Please,
Well,
thank you.
I'll just respond with one thing. The emergency declaration gives you the town, not the town manager, not the town council chairman, the town, the ability to do certain things. You still have to function within the government. And it's all about communication, okay? And I posted the meeting accordingly. We got that declaration out there. And again, that was on a request of the town manager. That was the check and balance. The town manager to the town council chairman saying, hey, I've gotten advice about this declaration, we need to put it forward. That wasn't the town council chairman just putting a unilateral policy up place and say, council, vote on it. It was the town manager saying, hey, we need this declaration, put it forward, and we voted on it as a council. That's the check and balance. Any other questions on these?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do want to comment further to this effect. I'm going to be very clear. In the last 2 weeks, I've had to make numerous decisions immediately, and the information comes in, it changes as things are changing. I don't think any of us expected this degree of crisis that's going on with ever-changing rules and ever-changing decisions. And I'm going to be very clear, I'm going to have to make, and I have been making decisions on an immediate basis. And even within hours, second-guessing the decisions that I've made myself as new information comes in. I would hope, and I'm hoping forward, that this town council has some trust in that I have to make these important decisions and supports them in every way it can. Like you, after sometimes I'm making these decisions with new information, with recognition of things that I didn't know at the time I was making the decision, those decisions have to be changed and improved. I'm doing that. I immediately responded to union concerns and fixed it. But I'm going to be very clear, this is not going to be the first or last time that something becomes controversial in the kinds of decisions that are having to be made now. And I'm going to say it clearly, I'm only going to say it once. The decisions I'm going to make are going to be utilizing every bit of experience that I have, every bit of knowledge I've had in the 20 plus years of doing this job to make sure that the citizens of Southbridge are kept safe and that I do everything in my power to do with the best interests of those. And truthfully, if council wants to second guess those decisions or wants to complain about those decisions, I'm fine with that. That's your role. You have the ability to question my judgment and make decisions. And whatever decisions you choose to make as a result of that, that's fine. That's your role. But I'm not going to start second guessing how I make decisions, worrying about what the council is going to think every time I make a difficult decision over the next couple of weeks of this pandemic. I'm more than happy to live with the repercussions of any decisions I make, but I'm going to do what I think is best. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm just going to leave it at this, Mr. Town Manager. Town Council Chairman, every council is available by a phone call. To run something by just even the chairman so he can articulate that information before it even becomes a policy would have been a courtesy to this council. You failed to do that as a courtesy to this council, okay, on these two issues. And to sit there and say that we don't care, or kind of imply that the decisions that we make on the best interests of the town is a disservice, because we're working very hard to make sure of that, Mr. Manager.
And I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I agree that you are doing like I'm doing. You're making the best decisions you can at the time. And I appreciate that, and I think we should be working together in the best interest of the town. And I also must admit that it's very easy to look at what I do after I have to make a difficult decision when you have all the time in the world to second guess that decision. It's not so easy when you have to actually make the decision. That's why I'm coming. I'll say very clearly that I believe that you, all the members of the EOC, all the people involved in this discussion are doing their very best to ensure the safety of the citizens and residents. But I want to make it clear that that's exactly what my goal is as well. And again, you can second guess what I do, but I'm going to do what I think is right, and then I'll pay whatever consequences of that at a later time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything further on these two? All right, there's been questions on a discussion with the town manager's closing the town hall offices on Thursday evening and Friday. Several councilors asked about that decision. If you could just, the first email came out that you were going to do a deep cleaning of the town hall, and now it's further closing on those 2 days. And again, I'm not second guessing your decisions, you make the decisions, but every decision that we make as a council, whatever decision chiefs make, whatever decision you make, there is a second and third effect to those decisions. Because what happens when you close the town hall, you have the other town employees say, well, these people only work 4 days, why should I not work? So,
And thank you.
and it wasn't a clear delineation. We put a lot of people working from home, so therefore, what does town hall closing mean? Are you working on Friday? Several emails were sent out and intends to contact you. Closing the town hall, does that mean you don't work because nobody can get a message through the whole weekend? Or what does that mean, Ronnie? I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but they're important things. And what does town hall close mean? Are you working from home? Are others working from home? Or are we just done at 4 o'clock on Thursday?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you were part of this discussion because you happen to be in town hall and were made part of this discussion. The concept of closing Thursday nights was brought to my attention because the purpose of being there Thursday nights was to have citizens be able to come into their offices when town hall would be open for people who had to work during the day. There's been tremendous fear, anxiety, and concern about the mere fact that employees are working, and employees are not foolish. They know what's going on in all the towns around us, and many towns have no employees working in town hall whatsoever. Some towns have employees working. I've had discussion with town administrators and town managers who say, you know, the employees who can't work from home are working from home. There's a lot of employees who can't work from home. We're paying them anyway in the short term until we look at how long this crisis is going to go forward. Now, I'm going to say this with all the respect in the world of the employees. I'm tremendously impressed with the work that's being done with employees in the building who are doing everything in their power to respond to concerns. I'm also saddened by the comments of discussions I have every day with employees who keep asking me, why are we here? Is this dangerous? What are we doing to clean the building? You're right, we brought you a discussion about the deep cleaning of the building, and that Saturday or Sunday they did a full deep cleaning of the carpets and the upholstery to disinfect everything, I guess is the right word for it. You were in the discussion to close for 2 weeks. I decided to extend for 2 weeks for Thursday nights and Fridays. I decided to carry that into the next 2 weeks for a couple of reasons. Well, one is that the separation issues of not making employees come to work and lowering that time of people being together is a positive thing. And as you know, all businesses are closed for that very reason. So unlike other town halls that are closed, we're closing effectively 1 day a week. Joel, our maintenance department, is now doing a different type of cleaning than we've ever done in the past. All departments on Thursday night are cleaning off their desktops, cleaning off their areas, and Joel is literally coming in Friday and cleaning everything, desktops, keyboards, phones, doorknobs. It gives him a lot more opportunity to clean the building to make sure the building is safe when we come in Monday morning. Some employees are working. As you know, I'm totally available by phone as well, and I get calls from Andy over the weekend, the police chief, the fire chief. So in my job, I'm kind of always working whenever I get calls. I do go in sometimes and look at my emails and do different things, but I don't sit there. If you're asking me if I'm sitting there the same exact time that I would normally work, the answer is I'm not. But I'll also say this to you, I'm there every night way past normal hours because myself, my department, and Andy's department have massive amounts of new work as a result of this virus. So we're spending way more time than we ever did. That clearly is true of my department and is very true of Andy's department. The health department is just swamped in issues. I am extremely impressed with the work being done. And if the employees some of the employees are not working for 1 day compared to what's going on all across the state, I don't take any problem with that myself. I sent an email out to all my department saying if employees could work from home and get some things accomplished on Thursday nights and Fridays, please do so. But I'm also saying this to you, I'm not monitoring every employee's work effort to see exactly how much work they're doing on Thursdays and Fridays. These employees are scared to death. I can't begin to tell you the fear in these people. You know, there may be a couple that, would just like to stay home and get paid and not work. But the vast majority of these employees are frankly scared to death of being in that building every day. So giving one day where they're not facing that anxiety to be home, I frankly have no problem with that. And at least for the next 2 weeks, that's the position I've taken. We'll see how this transpires. Hopefully this ends soon. We can get back to normal course of business, but for right now, I think it's a reasonable policy to take, and to make sure Joel cleans the building to high standards to protect employees, I think is a great thing.
So, I just want, okay, Councilman, I just want to say, I truly appreciate all the hard work they're doing. I do understand that hesitation to come in, but we've done a pretty good job about getting people to work from home, separating people, making sure there's limited people in this space. So the town government has to go on. And I get that they're fearful. I'm fearful to go out to a grocery store. I have a daughter that's a respiratory therapist. She has to come home and bring her stuff home. And we make arrangements to make sure that our house is safe, because we're maybe the primary caretaker, because everybody else in that family is medical providers. So they have to go off to work, and we make sure our safety. The safety of our employees is paramount. So I don't want this at all articulated to anybody that myself don't care about the health and safety of the employees. I think we've done a good job to make sure we provide supplies to those town hall employees. And again, the separation, just know, like, there's people working in the bank, that there's 3 or 4 people that still work in a bank. Nobody goes into that bank. There's no public that comes into this town hall. So to sit there and throw out the fear factor, I understand their fear. Everybody has fear in this environment. So don't sit there and say that, oh my God, they're so fearful and scared to come to work. They understand. If not, if they don't have the ability to come to work, then let's make some other decisions. But I think we've done a very good job as a town to make sure they're in a safe environment and no public coming into this town. So they have to have some personal responsibility about their own interactions. Councilor Marquetti?
I'm going to have to take a real liberal stance on this. I don't really care if they're not working at all. I think people are concerned about their income right now, and it's important to keep paying people and keep them working, keep priming the pump. My only concern is one person cleaning the town hall, in my opinion, is not enough, and I think you should get them some more help over there. And I think steps should be taken to thoroughly clean that town hall, maybe even remove that carpet. And I would like to see a drop ceiling in the town council chambers. I know it's a beautiful ceiling up there, but like I said, I don't really want to see any more bats falling down from that ceiling. Try to get some more help over there. I don't think one janitor is enough to clean that entire town hall. And that's all. Thank you. I can't hear you, Jack.
Thanks, I saw David. Any other councilors have something they want to, had questions? I know that it wasn't just me that asked this question. Anybody else have questions that they want to bring up? Councilor Adams?
My question is, and I emailed the town manager last week, I believe, a couple of questions. So I just want to make sure the dates are correct. You're talking about, as I asked you specifically, are you talking about working on the 10th and the 17th, taking those days off? Or are you talking about the 17th and the 24th?
So, David, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but it's this coming Thursday and Friday, and the next Thursday and Friday, and then we'll reevaluate the situation.
So it's up to, okay, so it's up to the 17th. That's what I was asking in my email. All right. The other thing was, the reason why I asked this, because I heard, found out that somebody was, from other employees, that I sound like I was going around asking about what people were doing for a living over there. That's on the department heads, that's on you, Ron, to make sure that business is going as best they can. And I completely understand the fears, and if anybody in this room can understand the fears, it's probably me. So I will say this, is when the reason why I asked these questions was because there are individuals that will take the day off, which I completely understand. and then there's some that are working. I'm just wanting to make sure that, we're trying to spread the wealth the best we can. Again, I will reiterate, your job description, everybody's here, was changed because of the situation we're in. So obviously helping each other out the best we can to get some things done, and also keep in mind the safety of the employees within the town. I see the police and the fire department and the DPW going out there every day, and Andy and the health inspectors going out there every single day and having to face those fears, regardless of what level that fear may be at, that anxiety level may be at. Everybody takes it completely different, based on maybe life issues or experiences. But I guess my concern is to make sure that somehow or another we're properly spreading the workload if we can. But again, some department has to properly ensure the management of their personnel, and then obviously you as the town manager to properly manage the department heads as well. So, yeah, maybe follow up on his answer there.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chairman, Councilor Adams, first, thank you for that comment, because there's a huge quality of fairness in all of this, right? And I don't think it's fair that police officers and firemen can't take, or DPW workers or health agents can't take the same kind of 12-week family medical leave act that other people can get, other employees who are not facing the issue in the same way that those first responders are. There's an issue of, on Friday and Saturday, by giving employees off, some of us can work from home and others can't work from home. And how is that fair? DPW saying, oh, the town hall is closed, or even town hall workers who can work from home are going, well, how come some employees can't work from home and they're still getting paid? I would love, believe me, I would love to find some fairness in all of this. This disease is not, this disease and the virus and how it's impacting this town and this country is not fair to all kinds of people and how this is being done. I've yet to figure out some system that's fair. I know that when me and Councilor Jovan were talking about the employees who can work from home versus those who can't, that somehow in the future maybe we could give some comp time or work with those employees who are stuck working massive hours when others aren't working. How could we help benefit those employees? It's something we're going to have to look at, because my top management staff, who are all basically set up from home, to work from home, are going to work a lot more hours than, say, a clerk in the collector's office who can't work because you can't collect money. It's a huge difference. I find the amount of time that, for instance, our finance director is putting in and work with me in the health agent is just outrageous amounts of hours. Now, we're all exempt employees. We kind of signed up for this. Police and fire, DPW, by being emergency workers, they kind of signed up for this, and I guess it's just a bad part of the job we get. There's also benefits to those jobs, but it's difficult, and at different times it doesn't seem fair. I'm very sensitive to that, of how that plays out and how that impacts morale and everything in my department. I'm making the best judgments in those areas that I can, and truthfully, I don't find any of it enjoyable. I find it miserable, but it's my job and I'm doing it, but there's really no clear answers in how this is working out. Andy's got to be working 80 hours a week. Is that fair? No, but he's a health director. That's just the way it is. And we all accepted those jobs and we're living with them. And again, it's not fair, but it is what it is. Thank you, David. I appreciate, Councilor Adams, I appreciate that, and give me an opportunity to talk about that, because it's a stress that we're facing every day, and how to deal with those issues.
So, thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Just to follow up, Mr. Chair. So I was going to bring up a couple of things. Was the time off for those individuals that are having to? I'm assuming everything, as I don't want to lose focus on the bigger picture. The bigger picture is the fact that we have a pandemic, and people are dying from it, and there's high anxiety, just not in our town, but everywhere in people's homes. But when this does pass, are there plans? Are we looking at plans to help those individuals that have been working their tails off when it comes to being away from their families and friends and exposing themselves? Trying to work something out with the departments. Obviously, it doesn't fit all. Everything, one thing doesn't fit all. So, and you're right. There are a lot of guys and gals that went out there and they signed up for the jobs that they're in right now, and this is consequences for those decisions because that's what they wanted to do. I got that. I just want to make sure that best we can to help offset some of the stresses that occurred over the last few weeks for some of these young men and women.
And Councilor Adams, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that comment because in the future, I'm going to be looking at guys like Andy and saying, hey, if he comes in and asks me for a few hours comp time or something to do something, I'm going to grant it. Me and Councilor Jovan had a lot of comment about that because I think, and the chairman can speak to it himself, he felt the same thing. How is this fair to different people? I think he said over and over, recognizing the work of the police chief and the fire chief and all those that are really actively engaged in this issue. The finance director and I have spent more time talking about the impact on the budget, along with our treasurer, talking about the impact on the budget this last number of weeks. And Councilor Adam then said in the middle of that, all the kind of questions that we've been deliberating about, and we're preparing those answers. But, I'm not going to kid you. I've spent a lot of extra time working at night, going to council meetings and subcommittee meetings. In the last number of weeks, I can't believe the amount of extra time I've spent every night. I don't think anybody in my office, well, at least me and Yvonne, have not left on time in the last couple of weeks ever. The same thing is true in Andy's office. I mean, I got on Andy's office at 6 o'clock at night. We closed at 4, and me and Andy are talking about what happened during the day. It's just, it's a different world, one we are trying to adjust to. And I got to tell you, I'm extremely impressed with department heads who don't care what hours they're working. Will is there late at night. Jim Cosgrove is trying to figure out things. I'm impressed. I'm not getting department heads being angry about it. They're stepping up to the plate and doing what they got to do. And you're right. I will be showing appreciation to them once we get past this craziness. Exactly how yet, that's to be determined. But there will be some flexibility with those people who went above and beyond duty to make sure we protect the people of this town.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Councilman, did you have something?
Oh, no.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I do have a concern with people, and I know it's all safety. We have to practice safe distance and stuff. So the employees that aren't able to work from home, but they're not in the town hall, are at home not working and getting paid. Why don't we have a type of staggering system where, like, the department heads or those who are able to work from home, and those who don't have that capability come into the office and keep separated at a safe distance. It's being done in the grocery stores. And when you talk about the collector's office, nobody being in there because we're not collecting any money. Well, there's got to be money coming in. There's got to be checks coming in. There's got to be credit card payments coming in. Somebody's got to be processing that. And if you're just having Karen doing all of that, or Mindy, or not Mindy, who is it, Melissa? Is it Melissa? Melissa, I'm sorry. Melissa doing all that stuff. And she's working on all this other budget stuff, and she's putting in like 70 hours a week. Why can't you have that one person who can't work from home in the collector's office doing all that stuff? I mean, you're talking about changing times and everything. Well, maybe people need to take on a different role and just take part in it, because it's not fair to the people who are working their butts off, and the DPW and everybody else, when you got people not working and getting paid for it. And I don't want to sound mean, and I don't want to sound like inconsiderate of anybody's feelings or anything, but if we can't find things for people to do, and if they're non-essential workers and they shouldn't be coming in, well, then perhaps there should be a temporary layoff of some sort. It wouldn't be permanent. They would be coming back. I know people who work for the state who don't go in, and they're not getting paid to sit at home and do nothing. They're laid off. They have to collect. They're a government worker. So, I mean, I appreciate everything that everyone does in the town, and I am concerned about everybody's safety. to your point, Jack, the banks, some of the banks are having limited hours where people are coming in now. And if you ever go into CVS, and in Massachusetts and in other parts of the country, they have a plastic shield up. So when people come up and talk to them, they're not like face to face like this, you know? The plastic is their safeguard, that big plastic shield. So, I mean, there's ways to work around this, and I don't want to sound like I was being inconsiderate or anything to all the employees, but I mean, we shouldn't be paying people for sitting at home and doing nothing.
Thank you.
I know me. If I was not able to work at home and my business is a non-essential business and it needs to be closed and I didn't have the capability to be I wouldn't be getting by my company. I would get laid off and then call back to work when the building opened. So.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Councilor Manna. First of all, up until the last 2 weeks, all employees were working full schedules, no changes. You know, it's interesting, I was talking to the town clerk today, I talked to a number of department heads. Most people who call town hall, or a lot of people who call town hall, are surprised they're getting employees at all, that they're getting people to work. There's a lot of surprise. We really haven't had any complaints that I know of from citizens. They've been very supportive of the town employees and very surprised to find them all there working because a lot of them are restricted to being home. Employees are doing work. The collector's office staff is doing anything. You're right, money is coming in through checks in different ways, and they have to balance of making money. Also, the good thing about, I guess if there's any good thing about this is that, you know, we're transitioning to Munis, so it's giving some employees some additional time to do training that would otherwise be very difficult to take to get ready for the Munis transition. So I think that's going on as well. I would say to you that there's department heads, if they're not there Thursday night or Friday, that they're still putting in 50 and 60-hour work weeks because of the nature of what's going on. You know, I constantly hear discussions between, you know, Andy is emailing Melissa at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night on issues, and Karen's involved in various discussions. In some respects, I don't think my department heads stop in one light. They may not be working the full amount of hours, but they're engaged because of the nature of the incident is making them engaged and making them do work that otherwise, frankly, they would never be doing. So I think even if town hall being closed the last 2 weeks and expecting to close Thursday night, Friday morning, going forward, I think that there's going to be a lot of work being done. Now, also I want to point out that while a bunch of people are already working from home, and we can watch. I'll give you an example. Will can see on Mark's desktop. Mark is working from home. Will was laughing because he was showing me the desktop where you can see Mark pushing the keys on his computer at home and seeing that Mark is working his tail off from home even though he's home. You can monitor that because we've tied in their home computers to our desktops at work, so the desktops have to be on. So you can see the work being done by these employees, which is pretty fascinating, and you can, you know, department heads can actually observe that work. And I don't feel that employees are really taking advantage of this situation. Actually, I feel like they're really stepping up into the situation, which is different. I agree with you, and that's why, unlike a lot of other managers, my employees are still working in the building and stuff. A lot of other towns, that's not occurring. Because I also agree with you that taxpayers pay taxes and they should expect a great deal of work is being done. And I would say to you, in my opinion, that the town of Southbridge employees are producing more work than most towns in this region because they're all still engaged in town hall and still actively engaged in serving the community. And I'm proud of that. But I also want to put the caveat in, it's also difficult because those same employees that are working their tail off, that are taking a step above and trying to keep doing their job, providing services, are also looking at me to some degree going, you know, other towns the employees are home and you're not providing safety for us. So you know, I'm damned if I don't let them work from home, and I'm damned if I keep, you know, by keeping them at work. At the same time, like you, I think taxpayers, even in this time, deserve to have services, and I'm trying to do the best we can to provide as many services as we can during this difficult time.
I just want to follow up with that. So I wasn't talking about just the department heads. I was under the assumption, because what I heard was we have employees who are at home, not working and getting paid. So that's what I was talking about. I wasn't talking about the department heads working from home and sending out emails to this, that, and the other one. And I get that. I get the salaried employees, they have a little bit more that's expected from them. But when you're an hourly employee, then that you start talking about overtime and all this other stuff. So, and I totally get that. But what I'm saying is, have the people who are capable of working from home, work at home, and then have those who are not capable of working at home come into the town office and the town hall and pick up other things. Or if we can't utilize them during the closure of the town hall, then temporarily lay them off until this whole thing is over. That's what I'm saying.
So, through you, Chairman, just to address the layoff question, right? So we've let go of the crossing guards, we've let go of the pages of the library. We are letting go on a layoff, did you say a temporary layoff? 3 of our librarian staff members who have voluntarily agreed to take the layoff. We are going to consider more of that. The town administrative staff have considered that, have built a plan for that. I'm in regular contact with town managers and administrators all over the area. And so far, there's been no significant layoffs to date, with the exception of a number of library-type employees. But I say to you that I'm going to expect a wave, and I will admit openly and honestly that it will not be Ron San Angelo Southbridge town manager that starts laying off a bunch of people first. But I would suspect that we're going to see towns at some point soon, if this doesn't end, of starting to lay off staff, and Southbridge will be part of that. As we need to, but I think all of us are hoping to some degree that this ends soon and that we don't have to lay off people. That it really, as Councilor Marchetti said, there's no big value in having more people out of work. It saves the town a little bit of money because, we still have to pay 50% of their salaries in unemployment. So in theory, it could save us 50%, maybe some healthcare benefits. But that's a judgment call, and one that frankly I'm going to have to make as this process continues to go on. I hope for all of our sakes that this doesn't go on too much longer, but if it does, you're going to see that discussion of layoffs heat up, and I'll be making recommendations to town council. We've developed a plan, but we're not implementing until I see, where all the towns are starting to move in that direction. I'm not going to lead that charge, so to speak.
Councilman?
Okay, just to follow up with that, is that the town needs to hear this, because what I was hearing from the conversation in the beginning was, we have employees working at home, I'm not working, and they're getting paid. That's what I heard. That's what I got out of it. And this whole conversation leaded up to what you just told me, what we've done in the library, what we've done with our crossing guards. Because to me, at the beginning of this, I heard employees are getting paid and they're not working.
Councilor Mayor, that's true to a small degree. On Thursdays and Fridays, so 1 8-hour day, some employees are working from home, or not working from home, and not getting paid. Other employees are working from home and getting paid. So you're correct. There's a number of employees, not a huge amount, that cannot work from home and are getting paid. So that is true to a small degree in Southbridge and true throughout the entire region.
Well, so Mr. Chair, if I may follow up on that, then that really needs to be addressed, because I'm sorry, I know, and I totally get it. I totally get it. And when you're an employee and you're not working and you're getting paid, then you should be using your vacation hours, right? When you even go out of work on the Family Medical Leave Act, you have to use up your vacation hours before you get anything else supplemented to you, right? So are we asking the employees to use their vacation hours? Are we asking them to use their sick time? But we're just paying them, and when we're paying them that 8 hours and they're not working, they're still accumulating sick time, they're still accumulating vacation pay, and they're not working. So I don't want to sound like I'm being the jerk, but I mean, this is something that needs to be addressed.
Well, thank you. Again, I don't want to keep belaboring this, but there could be, and so far what I've instituted, there's been 2 weeks where some employees have not worked and got paid for 8 hours. And if we do it 2 more weeks longer, there's going to be some employees for 2 more weeks and 8 hours each of those weeks that are going to get paid for not doing work. It's a difficult question, Councilor Manning, and I agree with you. There are many employers throughout this country that are paying their employees for not working, and they can do so for a short period of time because they want to keep the morale of their employees up. They want to keep the employees from leaving their jobs. There's a lot of reasons why towns and businesses are paying employees right now in the short term. I think, I give an example, the car dealership in Auburn, where I take my car for an oil change. I was the last person to get an oil change. They were closing it Friday at noon. They were going to pay their employees for a month. And then after a month, they may have to decide layoffs and stuff. So a lot of good employers, a lot of good towns, they want to protect their employees, and they're paying, to some degree, employees for not working in a short period. That's extremely true of our school system right now. There's a whole bunch of people getting paid for not providing educational service to the town. But it's done to protect the staff, to reduce layoffs, to make sure that the infrastructure of the organization lasts when it comes back online. So you're right. There's going to be a time where the difficult decision of layoffs is going to be made, and it may not be that far in the future. But I'm doing my best, and I've said to employees, hey, at least for right now, as long as I can keep working you almost all the hours in town hall, I'm not recommending layoffs. But that decision could change on a day-by-day basis as we go forward. And if this goes on over a longer period of time, that decision is going to have to be made. And you're correct. A number of our employees who have worked for this town for 25 years may end up getting laid off. And truthfully, for lower-paid workers, and I've talked about this with employees, under the new federal law for unemployment, low-paid workers could actually make more money by being laid off than by being employed over the short term. But employees who've been here 30 years, 25 years, will make a higher salary, will end up getting hurt by a layoff. So, the whole layoff question is an important question. It is under serious consideration. The plan is made in case we have to move in that direction, and at an appropriate time, I'll make that decision.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? No. Again, to those town employees that may be listening to this, I know there are several out there because it is going out. I've gotten some messages that it is going out, so thankfully. We do care about the health and safety of all employees. And to Councilor Marquette's point of everybody staying home, I would love to be able to do that, and let's get everybody staying at home. However, there are some services in town that have to be done. We could have everybody just stay at home and get paid. And I had this conversation with one of the unions at one thing, saying, all right, that's good. I could have all the town hall employees sit at home, but if we do that, you're not getting paid because we're going to pay somebody to stay at home and not going to process a payroll or process a timesheet. So there's every decision we make, we have to weigh them and the benefit for the employee as well as the town, and we'll just continue to work our way through this. We'll have a lot more discussion about it because budgets are going to come up, and listen, if budget numbers don't come out well, we may be laying off a lot of people just because of no revenue coming in. So there's going to be a lot more tougher decisions about personnel and key personnel outside of a town hall. We just wanted an update on town hall closing and what does that mean, because it wasn't clear. So if there's no further questions on that, we'll move on to the last item before council's forum. Just discuss and review the town manager's memo to boards and committee chairs regarding open meeting law provisions dated March 31st, 2020. That was just, I've set up this platform for town council with Zoom because there really was no clear picture. I know Councilor Adams has tried to work some meetings through as well with GoToMeeting. So we just get an update of where we stand. This first started on March 16th. Just looking, I know I did review the memo, but I still wasn't clear as to how exactly, there was not clear things of how to make sure that your meeting notice is correct and all that. So, Ron, if you could give us a brief discussion about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know
Until Monday, we will.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know there's been frustration with this. So Will Connor, our IT director, has developed a system pretty quickly to use GoToMeeting. And that was relates to a meeting we had with the Conservation Commission and Planning Commission. So GoToMeeting was set up pretty quickly, and Will was studying and evaluating a variety of different platforms and came to the conclusion that they're very much alike. I, quite frankly, right now on my cell phone have 3 different setups. I have the school system set up, I have Zoom that you have, and I have GoToMeeting now that I've downloaded. But the system that we are using, moving forward is the GoToMeeting platform. It's very easy to use, as you know. I had originally gave in Councilor Adams my initial setting up of the account. Our assessor was having an extremely difficult time. As you can imagine, right now, everybody and their brother is trying to get on these platforms. And I had my own platform set up well before this came up, and when I went to use it, I found out it was a free platform that, I couldn't hear people and people were falling off because so many people are trying to use the free platforms. So, like you, Mr. Chairman, I was trying to figure out, Will had set up GoToMeeting, and I was trying to set up my own account for GoToMeeting because Will was trying to get a hold of somebody at GoToMeeting to set up a global account, in other words, an account for all of Town Hall. And because of the huge demand, he couldn't even get a hold of everybody. So, I was setting up my own, and GoToMeeting gives you 14 free days, and then you have to pay and you can get on the platform. It's only $150 a year, so not outrageous. I started going down that path. Will informed me that he finally has gotten a hold of somebody from GoToMeeting, and they're establishing a town-wide GoToMeeting account, so we all don't have to have separate accounts. If you choose to, and I said to you through an email, and still, if you want to stay on Zoom, they're equal accounts. It really doesn't matter. And if you guys want to use a separate platform than GoToMeeting, I'm totally comfortable with that. Now, in terms of the commissions and boards of commissions, we have advised in the letter that I sent out to all boards and commission members who don't need to meet. There's nothing pressing or priority that they shouldn't meet. We don't want to have meetings because all of these meetings occur, as you know, without public participation. And Southbridge has a long history of allowing people to participate in our meetings. So if it's a small historical commission meeting, a trails committee meeting, those meetings simply aren't necessary at this time, and we're not having them. There are some key commissions, as you know. Town council needs to have meetings, especially with our budget coming up. The health department, because this is a critical situation, they are using a GoToMeeting account right now, a separate one than what Eric is using. What I don't want is every commission member controlling these GoToMeeting accounts. So I really want key department heads to work with the various commissions they're involved with when they set up these meetings. So if planning, zoning, Board of Appeals needs to have a meeting, they work through Eric. Eric establishes the meeting and sets it all up and works with. The normal posting of a meeting occurs at the town clerk's office just like it does any other time. Nothing has changed in that. As you understand, Mr. Chairman, there's a unique role of a public hearing, and that is a little bit different because if you have to have a public hearing, and I think I want to say it was planning or zoning, one of them had a public hearing, that by nature requires the public to be involved. So with that, when you set to go to your meeting thing, you have to put on the notice of the meeting, the go to hearing and how to sign up for it so the public can participate in the hearing. But Will Canoyer is in charge of the Board of Assessors. Andy is in charge of the Health Department, all their meetings. He sets them up and works with them. Eric does all the land use meetings. And Maddie, if God forbid, we have a small committee that needs to meet, Maddie has been trained by Will how to set up a GoToMeeting for them. When the meeting gets posted, she'll work with that individual chair to do it. The trick is we got to make sure that each of these small commission members all have email accounts, because as you know, in order to invite them, they have to have an email account to invite them to the meeting too. So I've had Maddie work with Yvonne to make sure that they have all the email invitations for those members. I'm very comfortable that proper staff, key staff, knows how to set the meetings. Maddie is all involved with them for any kind of posting or any special posting that needs to be done. So I'm totally comfortable that the town government is organized to do this and people understand the process. As you know, at the beginning of your meeting, you read the statewide explanation. This letter has that statewide explanation in it. It defines who they should talk to. All the individuals who are doing this understand what their role is and understand that they're going to be working with the chairs of the various boards and commissions and making sure, like you did when you did your test practice run with the town council, they're doing the same thing you did before they actually have their first meeting. If it's a new meeting, to have that practice run to make sure it goes as well. So I'm comfortable. The town council chooses to go to meeting. Will has said to me that it's very easy. I know David Adams is going to use it for his meeting, but if you want to use it for budget hearings, that's fine. If you're going to use Zoom, that's great too. The issue is you're going to have to coordinate for Yvonne to invite all the players and make sure that the emails to invite, I guess you'd share your Zoom account with her so she can invite the appropriate people. That, frankly, is your decision how you want to move forward on that. But Yvonne is available to you for whatever process you need. But I'm very comfortable that everybody understands their roles in this and move forward. Now, as you know, and I don't know if all councilors know, Cable Access Company is trying to connect the GoToMeeting or the Zoom format, whatever format we use for a laptop, they need to connect that to the cable access system. Now tonight, this meeting is set up through microphones and it's done, and it probably is working, but it's not working nearly as well as it could. We finally got a hold of the contractor. He's going to supply whatever it is, equipment he needs, so that the audio and the video goes directly out of the laptop and goes directly into our cable system, so that when residents listen to this, they can hear very clearly and see a clear picture. So that is moving forward as well. I know that's something that's been important to you, and Jim has been working with the vendor to get that accomplished. Jim, Max, and Will, it's sort of a team of trying to make that work through. I actually called the vendor over the weekend to talk to him because I couldn't get a hold of him during the week, and left him a message, and he reported back in the email to me, a message to me, that he understood what we wanted, that he was capable of doing it. His response to me seemed very clear that he has a good handle on our technological needs in our current system, so I feel comfortable that that will meet the needs that we've discussed. The only question I think we need to have a little bit of further discussion on is when we get to the point with public participating, how that's going to work. You know, turning on the mics for citizens and all that is going to have to be something that me and you need to work with the cable guys to make sure that you have control over how people access and discuss issues that are outside of the regular staff and council members.
Okay,
And that's
thank
pretty
you.
much it.
Well, I think as Council Manna pointed out, I've muted her a couple times, so I may be able to do this right on this platform. I had a conversation with Superintendent LaFleche at Bay Path, who had just had a Bay Path school committee meeting, and asked him, hey, did you have the public participate? Yep. Posted right on notice. Here's your meeting notice. Here's the password. And we had people, they didn't have a lot. So I think actually on the agenda item, I may even try to do this as a public participation for Monday night, because we'll be able to put it out there on the agenda and a simple password with the site. And I have the ability to control mute and all that. So I know messages that I've gotten from the cable access, they say that this is going over very well right now. So this workaround that we have is working. A couple messages from people outside of here that are watching it from home saying it's coming out over very nicely. So whatever we did in cable, kudos to them in the cable. Just one follow-up question to that, and I'm sure we'll have follow-up on this remote participation next week. I thought I heard you say that Will is in the process of setting up this account and has been in contact for all town boards. So this has not been finalized as of today, April 8th. Is that what you're saying?
So there's two different issues.
Did I mishear you?
Well, yes and no. The clarity, I just need to clarify it for you. So the accounts are set up and that all employees can access the account. What Will is still working on, instead of us having separate GoToMeeting accounts, he's going to have one global account. So really it's more of a financial billing and not having three separate GoToMeeting accounts, but all on one account. So that, because I was going to pay on my credit card for my account, Will says don't do that. There'll be one billing for a global account. So it's not it's all up and running, but it will be much more effective if it's all under one account and not under 3 different accounts.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from anybody right now as we work our way through this? Councilman?
So, thank you. So apparently it seems like we're gonna do Zoom. Am I right in saying that, Jack, for the town council?
I have that set up right now because of the ease of setting this up and no clear cut
Just so,
direction last week, when I first set this up 2 weeks ago, so,
okay,
yes.
so, so if you're putting it out there for the public, you gotta make sure that you have like and I'm assuming that you have the right type of account, like it's gotta be more than 30 minutes, you can allow.
I'm paying for it out of pocket, Counselor, it's all set.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, and just so you know, that I did not need a password to get into this meeting.
Okay, I'll double check the setting, but, okay. Any further questions on remote? All right. We'll go to Council's forum. I'll go to Councilor Nash because he's been so quiet tonight. First, Councilor Nash, do you have anything?
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate the banter and the discussion tonight. Just looking forward to Monday night's meeting, maybe just encouraging everyone to remain vigilant and safe, of course, but what's more, still have the same concerns everybody else does about revenues going forward and budgeting, that we have budget meetings upcoming, definitely some new challenges there, but otherwise, I'll stand silent.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a brief comment. So, as you guys know, the chairman has asked for a lot of questions, things that frankly we've been working on, and the chairman just asked for direct answers to the questions. I finished the first draft of that answer. I gave it to Karen, and Karen has done some tweaking to it. Melissa, it's now in the hands of Melissa because the most difficult part of this is the revenue part of this. So Melissa is trying to evaluate and give her best judgment as to what the impact might be. But it's expected that we're going to have that, the answers to those questions to you shortly. Now, it's important that you guys have that information prior to budget because a lot of this is going to be discussions for budget process as we move forward. But you should have that, my guess, within the next couple of days. And they're not all clear cancels, but all clear decisions because a lot of these decisions are going to be the town council decisions to make. But we're giving you our best advice or options that we can consider as we move forward through this process. So we've got some difficult decisions ahead. I grant you that, but we also feel that the town has positioned itself financially in a way that we can address these positions without any kind of disaster. At least that's our opinion as of this date.
Thank you. Councilman, I think possibly it was no password, but I had to admit you into the meeting. But I'll look at those settings. Thank you. So I'll go to you on Council's forum, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I just want to make sure the public knows how appreciative I am of all our first responders, our healthcare workers, our grocery clerks, our takeout, and I know this is a huge impact on every single person in our community, state, country, in the world. So I just want to thank everyone. I got a call today from a man with regards to his cable bill. And I did let him know that the contract for the cable was up for negotiation. And I remember talking to the town manager about this a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, with the negotiating of the contract. He's very upset about his cable bill, and as very well he should be. I mean, he, like everyone else who has Charter Communications Spectrum, pays an enormous amount if they're going to get like a couple cable boxes or Charter, and if they want a little bit more, it doesn't matter anyways, whatever you have is going up. So he just wanted to tell me that he had a bill, $159, that's his cable bill, and it was like last month. Then he got another cable bill, and it's $174.19, so it's like a $16 hike. And then they proceeded to tell him that next month his cable bill is going to even be more. It's going to be like $202, so it's going up again, like $28. So it's just craziness. I just want to know, maybe one day you could give us an update on the negotiations with the charter contract. And it's so unfortunate that we can't have any type of competitiveness here in our community with anything other than Dish.
Mr. Chairman, can I give a brief response? Is that okay?
So, go ahead, I'm not done, but go ahead. I'm done with the cable.
Yeah, just to give you a brief response on the cable, Councilor Manning, and thank you for the question. So I had asked for council approval to use the specialized cable attorney for that, and council granted that. And we had some initial conversation, one meeting, to discuss that, and as a result of that meeting, the cable station manager and staff are working on developing a 10-year capital budget that is part of that negotiation. And also, that we're required to present a 3-year operating budget as well. So that's occurring, but a first part of that process is to have a public hearing to listen to concerns just like the one you expressed about potential cable options and costs and all that things. But that got kind of put to the side is because of this cable virus. Obviously, we can't hold public hearings and have meetings and invite the public. So one of the first things will happen when town gets back to business is holding a public hearing so that citizens like the one you talked about can come and express their opinion so that when it comes to negotiation, we'll have a body of work that we can use in that negotiation process.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that update. And it would be nice, though, if there was something like when you post the public hearing online, for those people who can't make it, maybe to like have like a separate email or something where they can send you their concerns so they can be read by you for the public hearing. But, okay, well, thank you very much. I'm glad I was able to address this tonight. It isn't a lot of money. I mean, I pay a lot of money for my cable, but I have my phone and internet. You know, it's just, I don't know, it's crazy. He called it price gouging, and I don't blame him for saying that. So, anyways, I just want to say stay safe out there and, you know, keep social distancing. And thank you again for everyone for all they're doing. That's all.
Thank you. Councilor Marquetti?
I just wanted to, a couple of things. First of all, I read an article the other day that communities are getting more funds from CDBG grants, and I'm hoping that Southbridge can tap into that as well. I sent off an email to Congressman Neal's office immediately because I didn't see Southbridge on the list as getting more of that money, and I think we should get more of that money, just like all the other communities. So I'm hoping that that comes through. Second of all, I got the same phone call from the guy on cable, on his cable bill, and I agree that is price gouging. I did send the town manager an email on it, especially right now during this emergency. I don't think Charter should be raising anybody's rates right now. They're offering free internet right now for people, so why they want to gouge people now during this pandemic is beyond me. It's not good public relations either. Besides being, hurting the guy's pocketbook. So I'd appreciate it if the town manager, if you would, look into this for me.
We have my intent to.
Thank you.
And also I also got another email from a veteran in town, and some of the veterans are concerned because they're not getting their benefits because there's a problem in Boston because of this emergency. Not all the offices are up and operating, and there's concern about homelessness. Well, some of these veterans need their benefits to keep them from becoming homeless. So I know that the town does have some funds in the budget for veterans benefits, and I would ask that the town release some of those funds. I know it's not very much. I know it's supposed to be a matching grant with the state, but if the state's not going to pay it out right now, I would suggest that the town at least release some of those funds to help these veterans out a little bit, so they don't become homeless in Southbridge. And finally, I just hope, I want to say again to all the counselors, and all the town employees and residents in town to please stay safe and stay healthy if you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've said it many times. For everyone to remain vigilant, stay safe. I look forward to the budget season. As we know, revenues are difficult and going to be difficult. See everyone Monday night. Stay safe.
Councilor Adams, sorry. Go ahead, Councilor Adams.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Just reiterate everybody else's concerns and please stay safe out there. I want to thank Keith Woodson and Normandin, obviously, town manager Andy, Councilor Jovan, and all those other people that are working day in, day out, first responders, and specifically want to thank the community. They've been very supportive of each other, and a lot of donations have been given to not only just the first responders, but to everyday citizens out there. And I look forward to moving on from here. But just to Councilor Marquetti, if they can reach out to Keith Roberts, the Veteran Service Officer, that would probably be the best bet to find out. He'll probably know more about their case than anybody, especially if the VA is not working. I know specifically that when it comes to VA health and all that kind of stuff, unless it's a dire emergency, they're not even taking just regular annual physicals or anything like that right now. But as far as benefits are concerned, those should be locked into the system already, unless it's a new case, and obviously sometimes there's a lot of red tape, but I do know those funds are available through the Veteran Service Officer already that we've approved each year during the budget season. So hopefully that helps answer the veterans' questions a little bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mary, before we adjourn and go to Councilor Daniels there for last, if you could just know, I know Councilor Steves had sent me some emails during this meeting. He's listening from home, so I think he had some access issues, but you can mark him as present because he is at least listening to the meeting. Okay,
will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I'd also like to pile on when it comes to cable access. I've got elderly relatives that enjoy the meetings, and this is their only way of finding out now that the local newspapers don't really publish local news. This is where they get their news. And I think it's become a critical issue in town. I think it's, if it wasn't for the current emergency, I think that it would be a high priority critical issue in town. And, you know, I would suggest to those that are doing the negotiating that perhaps thinking out of the box a little bit, looking into some different strategies, looking into the possibility, as difficult as I know it is, into seeing about another service coming into town or competing services, bidding out, looking at all the strategies, again, thinking out of the box, and trying to do what we can for the citizens in town. The fact that we consider it so important to get through the platforms that we're using now, citizen access, I think that it belies the fact that cable TV is still very important and something we should be looking at. Second item I'd like to bring up is I'd like to thank the chair and the town manager for their update on Quinsigamond. In my opinion, Quinsigamond is a jewel in Southbridge's crown, and it would be a shame if they were to not be around anymore. The constituents have a lot of concern about the fact that Quinsigamond is looking at numbers, and in today's day and age, when you're looking at numbers, that doesn't usually bode too well. I'm glad to hear you tell us tonight that they're just looking to change things around a little bit, but I'd still be concerned. I'd still be a little worried, and I know at least I'm a little worried about it. I really don't want to see the college campus leave the town. I think it offers a lot of benefit to our students, so it's nice to hear that they want to work out something with the local school district. But there's also a lot of coursework that's being offered to adult learners as well. And those learners that are not in school right now, young adults that are looking for an alternative education. So there's a lot that people could use Quinsigamond for. There's a lot that Quinsigamond could offer. I just hope that we're doing our due diligence on keeping an eye on them and keeping them in town. I think as a result of tonight's discussion, it becomes evident that the Charter Review Committee is an important committee. And once again, I know I've said this in the past, and I said I'd harp on it, so I'm harping on it again tonight. It's really important that the citizens consider being on the Charter Review Committee and later on the Bylaw Review Committee. I can't say enough about how important it is. And the discussions tonight maybe wouldn't have had to have occurred if the charter was perhaps more clear in spelling out what the actual responsibilities and duties are. And that's my opinion. It may not be fact, but it is my opinion. So I ask the citizens in town to again consider seriously becoming a member, sending a letter of interest to the town chair, as well as to the town manager, and letting us know that you have an interest in it. It's really vitally important, and I can't say enough how grateful that the town members of the town council would be and the town manager would be to get this review committee up and running and moving it forward. Last but certainly not least, I also want to offer my thanks once again to the citizens of Southbridge for their cooperation and their help during this emergency, and a very special heartfelt thank you to the employees of the town, all the employees of the town. This is an all-hands-on-deck situation. People do grumble. I understand that. Not everyone likes what they have to do. I understand that. But the fact that you're doing it, and the fact that you're doing it well, because from what I've heard, there's been no diminution in services, says a lot for the quality of the people that we have working for us. So you have my heartfelt thank you, and keep up the good work. That's all I have right now as far as the forum goes. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is next Monday, the 13th, at 7 o'clock. And I believe it's a remote access meeting.
Yeah, it will be. And again, thank you all for participating in tonight's meeting. I know we had a quite lengthy discussion on some topics. I think it's good that we hashed it out this evening. I know it was rather lengthy, but I'm sure the conversation went on Monday night as well on some of those topics. So it's great that we have a great update by the incident commanders, Chief Woodson and Chief Normandin, as well as Inspector Andrew Pelletier. And just reiterate, folks out there, stay safe, follow those social distancing guidelines. The next week is going to be a rough week. So as long as we all do our part and we stay safe, we'll get through this as a community as we have done in the past. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion is second. Roll call.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Catrona?
Yes.
Counselor Daniel?
Yes.
Counselor Jovan?
Yes.
Counselor Lazo? Oops, not here. Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti?
Yes.
And Counselor Nash?
Yes.
Okay, thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.